Chapter 1207, Sword King's Inheritance. Wang Xian swung the level 5 sword in his hand. A hint of surprise appeared on his face. It was a pity that with his current strength, he was unable to unleash the power of this sword. He could only use it as a weapon that surpassed the level of half-step void interpretation. This sword seems to have two attributes. Wang Xian touched it, and felt the sharpness and softness of the sword ray. It should be metal and water attributes. He looked at the corpse, and took a book from his bosom. The Inheritance of the Sword King. Looking at the cover of the book, Wang Xian flipped it open. I am the Sword King Lung Haotsong, the Sword King of the Bloodstream sect. My swordsmanship is invincible in the Flowing Sea region. However, I was born at the wrong time and the Bloodstream sect was in chaos. I cannot suppress the bloodstream. I regret being born 20 years later. Otherwise, I will suppress everything. Wang Xian looked at the contents of the book, and curled his lips slightly. This Lung Haotsong was really good at acting cool. Regardless of whether it was his deliberately mystifying voice when he just entered the door, or the records on the words, there was a strong sense of acting cool. However, when Wang Xian continued reading, he raised his eyebrows slightly, and his eyes flickered. Lung Haotsong was 83 years old when he died. Among the insightful emptiness realm experts, he was definitely an extremely young and demonic existence. And the 83-year-old Lung Haotsong was not at the first level of the insightful emptiness realm, but had reached the 5th level of the insightful emptiness realm. At that time, Lung Haotsong was called a rare genius by the Bloodstream sect. He would definitely suppress the entire sky in the future. Lung Haotsong's most terrifying aspect was not only his level, but also the attributes he cultivated, dual attributes, metal and water. Other than that, there was also his terrifying sword arts. The title of Sword King was not self-proclaimed. A peerless swordsman who cultivated dual attributes at the age of 83 was at level 5 of the see-through realm. At that time, his status was only second to a few top-notch figures. Such a peerless swordsman was harmed by demonic beasts when the Bloodstream sect was separated. He had no choice but to return to his sword mansion and set up it as a land of inheritance. Peerless Sword King dual attributes. With the strength of level 5 of the see-through realm, he could kill a level 6 see-through realm. This Lung Haotsong is truly peerless and talented. Wang Xian looked at the records, and his eyes were filled with amazement. If he was born 20 years earlier, he would really have the strength to suppress everything. What could he do? The Golden Water Sword Principle. Wang Xian flipped back and saw Lung Haotsong's inherited sword techniques. They were all sword techniques. Among them, there were many powerful sword techniques that were combined with dual attributes. The Golden Water Principle. One was extremely hard, and the other extremely soft. Both were hard and soft at the same time. Wang Xian flipped through the pages and realized that Lung Haotsong's metal and water sword principle was slightly different from his two attributes combination. To be more precise, Lung Haotsong's two attributes combination was even more exquisite. This gave him a lot of inspiration. My sword principle can only be inherited by a heaven's favorite who possesses both metal and water attributes. Without both metal and water attributes, one cannot enter the sword tomb. I hope that my successor can pass down my sword principle and carry it forward. Looking at Lung Haotsong's last sentence, Wang Xian was slightly moved. Although I possess both metal and water attributes, I might not be able to carry it forward. If I have the chance to meet a genius with both metal and water attributes and sword principle, I will pass this inheritance of yours to him. Wang Xian sighed and walked straight into the sword mansion. The strong were respected. Although Wang Xian initially felt that Lung Haotsong was a little pretentious, it seemed that he did have the ability to do so. However, as a divine dragon, it was unrealistic for him to acknowledge him as his master and promote the Golden Water Sword principle. Wang Xian walked straight into the sword mansion. According to Lung Haotsong's records, there was a sword training ground in the sword mansion that contained rich energy of the dual elemental metal and water. In addition, all of his treasures were stored here. Wang Xian took a stroll around the sword mansion. The sword training ground was located in a sword training room beside the corpse. Lung Haotsong left behind a few items. He was a swordsman who had almost gone crazy. There were no spiritual herbs, pets, or mounts in the sword mansion. Even the spiritual liquid was depleted when he was severely injured. There were only swords. There were a total of 18 of them. They were the long swords that he had used from the beginning of his sword training until his death. From ordinary iron swords to the 3rd level of the see-through realm. However, what pleased Wang Xian was that Lung Haotsong's interspatial ring contained a lot of metals and materials used to forge long swords. The harvest is not bad. If I sell the items I obtained from these 4 mansions, I will definitely be able to raise my strength to the 9th level of the extraordinary realm. There might even be some left over. Wang Xian looked at the items in his interspatial ring and grinned. The treasures left behind by the 4 insightful emptiness realm experts, along with Hua Zhen's interspatial ring and Heavenly Sword Star's interspatial ring, were worth more than 1 trillion middle-grade spirit stones. Of course, there was a prerequisite. He had to sell all the insightful emptiness realm weapons. This included the weapons at the insightful emptiness realm. Wang Xian was not in a hurry to leave. Instead, he came to the sword training room of the Golden Water Sword Principle. He possessed both the metal and water attributes. He could definitely cultivate the Golden Water Sword Principle. Furthermore, from the swordsmanship of the Lung Haotsong Sword King, he could deepen his understanding of the combination of attributes. When he entered the sword training room, the rich metal and water attributes flooded in. The entire sword training room was filled with 2 types of longswords, the metal and water, dancing in the sky. Sometimes when the metal and water swords collided, special changes would occur. In this room, one had to dodge the attacks of the metal and water swords and comprehend the usage of the 2 types of sword techniques. When Wang Xian entered, he immediately started to cultivate. Sword in the water. Gold-piercing sword. True sword rain. Gold-plated sword pursuit. Water flooded the golden mountain. After an unknown period of time, the sword techniques of the metal and water sword principle were mastered by Wang Xian. The deeper Wang Xian cultivated, the deeper his perception towards the combination of attributes was. Phew! Wang Xian, who had stayed in the sword training room for at least half a month, walked out. He revealed a faint smile on his face. He moved a chair and sat at the entrance to rest. I must succeed. I must avenge my family. At this moment, a determined roar came from outside. Wang Xian was stunned for a moment. A look of astonishment appeared on his face. His eyes flickered as he looked outside. A skinny young man was carrying a 2-meter-long sword on his back as he walked into the sword mansion with great difficulty. His body was filled with wounds. The terrifying sword rays that contained 2 types of energy, gold and water, were constantly attacking him. The skinny young man only had the strength of a level 9 extraordinary. However, the attacks that he unleashed were extremely powerful. Dual attributes. He has dual attributes as well. Furthermore, he has both metal and water attributes. Wang Xian looked at the energy fluctuation on the emaciated young man and was stunned. The young man was only 50 meters away from the sword mansion. However, this 50 meters was like a natural moat. His swordsmanship skills are not enough. However, he will be able to step into the sword mansion in a few months at most. What a joke of fate. If I had not come, the inheritance and everything else in the sword mansion would have belonged to this young man. Chapter 1208. Will give you an opportunity. Wang Xian looked at the young man who was standing outside, unable to move an inch. An inexplicable expression appeared on his face. The young man had both the metal and water attributes. He had reached extraordinary level 9 at such a young age. At his current age, although he was not as stunning as Lung Haotsong, he was definitely a heaven's favored son who was even more monstrous than the heavenly sword star. He could not even be compared to the 2 heavenly sword stars. Unfortunately, his current sword techniques and control over the 2 attributes of metal and water were not very strong. The current him could fight above his level, but it was absolutely impossible for him to defeat an expert who was one level higher than him. The young man's gaze was determined. The clothes on his body looked very ordinary. Only the great sword in his hand looked decent. However, he could only say that it was decent. The huge sword was now in tatters and cracks were appearing on it. This young man is more suitable to obtain the inheritance of the sword mansion than I am. A faint smile appeared on Wuxia's face. It just so happens that I have promised Sword King Lung Haotsong to find you a true inheritance. Then, I shall pass this Sword King's inheritance to you. As he spoke, he waved his arm, and the sword gate slowly opened. The young man who was dealing with the densely packed golden water swords did not notice the opening of the sword gate. At this moment, his entire body was drenched in sweat. His short hair was completely drenched. He gritted his teeth, and his face was filled with unwillingness. Bang! The huge sword in his hand was stabbed heavily into the ground. He was panting heavily, and his eyes revealed an embarrassed expression. It's over. I shouldn't have fought so hard. With my current state, I can't break through at all. He looked at the golden water swords around him, and his expression changed. A trace of despair appeared in his eyes. The hatred in his heart caused him to lose his rationality. Only now did he realize the seriousness of the problem. Originally, if he had retreated in time, he would definitely have been able to escape unscathed. However, at this moment, his body was completely exhausted. Facing the countless golden water swords around him, he was completely unable to resist. Why am I so stupid? Endless regret appeared on the young man's face. He looked at the golden water swords that were attacking him, and his body trembled. A defense was formed around him, but the endless attacks landed on his body, causing his defense to quickly collapse. When the young man saw this situation, a bitter expression appeared on his face. His defense crumbled, and the great sword in front of him slowly split apart. Despair had already enveloped him. Wang. At this moment, a great sword flew toward him. Half of the great sword was golden, and the other half was blue. The two attributes intersected, and they contained a unique energy. At this moment, the great sword was like an umbrella, forming a space of around 3 meters. Golden blue light circulated on it, and the two types of energy fused together, making it look extremely heavy. Wang. The great sword directly landed in front of the young man, and the space that it created directly enveloped the young man within. The young man, who had completely lost all hope, was slightly stunned, and his face was filled with shock as he looked at the great sword in front of him. The great sword was about 2 meters long, and it was even larger than the broken great sword in his hand. The surface of the sword shimmered with light and color. The sharpness of the first level of the see-through weapon was striking the surroundings. This was not what shocked him. What shocked him was the energy that surrounded him. The defense that was formed by the fusion of metal and water. The countless metal and water swords in the surroundings landed on the sword without a single ripple. This was the sword technique that Wuxia had mastered from the sword principle of metal and water. It was a combination of defensive sword techniques. He looked at the completely fused golden water energy and widened his eyes slightly. He quickly looked ahead. In his vision, the tightly shut sword gate had already opened. A blurry figure was standing there. Buzz! At this moment the figure waved his arm. A stream of light flew towards him and landed in front of him. It was a book with the words Golden Water Sword Principle written on it. He opened his mouth slightly, and his face was filled with shock. This is the inheritance of the Sword Mansion, the Golden Water Sword Principle. It was written by the Sword King of the Bloodstream sect, Lung Haotsong, a few thousand years ago. The attributes that you cultivate match the Golden Water Sword Principle. Today, I will pass it on to you, the Fated One. The great sword beside you is the Golden Water Heaven-Raising Great Sword that the Sword King Lung Haotsong used when he was at the first level of the Insightful Void Realm. It is the first level of the Insightful Void Realm. I will give it to you, the Fated One. I hope that you can bring the Golden Water Great Tao to greater heights. There is nothing else in the Sword Mansion. You can train your swordsmanship in the Sword Tomb, or you can leave. At this moment, a voice entered his ears, causing him to widen his eyes and look at the blurry figure. Peng! The moment he finished speaking, the sword gate closed. Senior, senior, senior. When the young man saw that the sword gate was closed, he stood up immediately and shouted loudly. Senior, may I ask who are you? This is how I repay you. Senior, he shouted loudly, but Wang Xian, who was behind the sword gate, didn't show any signs of change. He did this out of respect for the Sword King Lung Haotsong. It wasn't to the extent that his golden water sword principle would be lost. Senior, thank you, senior. Peng. The young man looked at the sword principle inheritance in his hand, and the great sword protecting him, and a grateful expression appeared on his face. He directly knelt on the ground and kowtowed 3 times. Who? The young man's hands trembled, and he reached out to touch the great sword of the profound void tier in front of him. Compared to this great sword, his great sword, which was only at transcendent level 8, was simply trash. His entire body trembled as he opened the golden water sword Dao inheritance. When he saw the contents, he was so happy that he wept. Once again he couldn't help but kneel down. That senior not only saved his life, but also gave him a priceless sword Dao inheritance. The grace of rebirth was like that of a parent. Unfortunately, he still didn't know that senior's name, or even his face. All right, you have found the person who passed on the inheritance. I feel at ease. Wang Xian looked at the corpse at the side, and then glanced at the young man who was kneeling over here. After hesitating for a moment, he dug a grave beside him and buried him. The name of the Sword King Lung Haotsong was carved on it. After doing all this, Wang Xian felt comfortable. When he saw the young man who was still kneeling over here, he smiled. This kid knew how to be grateful. Then he walked into the sword training room again. Star explosion. After an unknown period of time, Wang Xian waved the long sword in his hand. A small mountain peak that was emitting flames appeared in front of him. This small mountain peak that was emitting flames was based on the fire territory. When the fire territory was formed, Wang Xian did not stop his actions. He waved the long sword in his hand again. A strong golden sword aura rushed into the fire territory. Boom! A terrifying explosion was heard. Wang Xian's expression changed, and he retreated into the distance. Boom! 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 An attack that was like the destruction of a planet was heard. The entire sword training room could not withstand the terrifying force and trembled violently. Boom! The sword training room, which was protected by a powerful formation, collapsed immediately. Haha, it's a success! It's a success! The combination of the 3 attributes of the star explosion has finally succeeded. Wang Xian revealed an excited expression and couldn't help but laugh out loud. Once the starburst was released, he, who was in his human form, could break through the first level of the void interpretation stage. Chapter 1209, Sword Demon's Name 1. The 3 attributes of metal, wood and earth form the star explosion. With the experience of combining the 3 attributes, it won't be as difficult to combine another combat technique as it was at the beginning. Wang Xian revealed an excited expression. He looked hesitant. Should I strike while the iron is hot? He was tempted. The moment the star explosion was completed, another combination method appeared in his mind. The gold-piercing sword, coupled with the fire attribute, water countered fire, and fire countered metal. After casting the gold-piercing sword, he would immediately add fire. Under the 3 counter effects, it would definitely explode. Wang Xian thought of it and did it. He immediately began to practice. With the experience of the starburst, his speed was undoubtedly dozens of times faster this time. Fire penetrates gold. A few hours later, Wang Xian shook the longsword in his hand. The gold-piercing sword was instantly released, and a flame followed closely behind. The gold-piercing sword contained the flexibility of water dripping through stone and water. Coupled with the toughness of the metal attribute, the combination of the 2 resulted in an explosive increase in attack power. After adding the flame, the gold-piercing sword exploded due to the incompatibility of the attributes, and was divided into more than 10 small swords. This involved not only the incompatibility of the attributes, but also the control of the attributes. However, It was as if Wang Xian had perfectly mastered the golden water sword principle. Adding an attribute into it was much easier to control than before. Whoosh! 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 After the flame penetrated through gold was cast, numerous violent small swords attacked the ground directly. In an instant, hundreds of holes appeared on the ground. The holes were dozens of meters deep. This was extremely terrifying on the solid ground of the graveyard of demi-humans. Under this attack, even the armor of the first level of the see-through would be penetrated instantly. Haha, I have mastered the combination of 2 or 3 attributes. Wang Xian laughed, and did not continue to practice, because he had no inspiration in his mind. He had stayed here for at least a month. He could definitely go back and practice again. Wang Xian thought to himself, and walked straight out. I should keep a low profile. Before coming here, he had killed Heavenly Sword Star, the son of the sect leader of Swords Gate. Wang Xian was afraid that there would be an ambush outside, so he took out the mask that he got from Feng Wan. With the mask on, even an insightful void martial artist would find it hard to see his true appearance. Wang Xian walked out with a faint smile on his face. He walked in the sword tomb, as if he was walking on ordinary ground. Why aren't there many people in the sword tomb today? Wang Xian looked around, and realized that there were only 2 to 3 people in the sword tomb. A hint of doubt appeared on his face. However, he didn't think too much about it. As he walked out of the sword tomb, the familiar smell of blood greeted him. I should go back and think of a way to use all the resources in my hands and raise my level. As Wang Xian thought to himself, the corners of his mouth curled up slightly. It was so worth it to have such a harvest in less than 2 months. That young man is really unlucky. I heard that a week ago, he saved the second miss of the Zhou clan in the sword tomb. Miss Zhou has a good impression of him. She has been looking for him for the past few days. But in the end, she angered Meng Xiaoqin. Miss Zhou is a famous beauty with many suitors. I heard that the Zhou clan might have a marriage alliance with the Meng clan. Meng Xiaoqin has been pursuing Miss Zhou for so long. When he saw that it was about to be a good thing, a wild boy suddenly appeared. Naturally, he would be angry. Wang Xian walked out. He did not mind the gossip when he heard the discussions around him. Kid, how dare you snatch my woman? Have you been idle for too long? At this moment, an angry shout was heard. Wang Xian raised his head, and took a curious glance. However, when he looked over, his expression paused for a moment. He stopped immediately, and walked over slowly with a frown. Meng Xiaoqin, watch what you say. In an empty space in front of them, a young man in red was standing there with more than 10 people. His gaze was cold as he stared at the young man in front of him, whose clothes were a little tattered, and had no expression on his face. The young man in red had a dark gaze and a tall nose. He looked very uncomfortable. Beside the young man in tattered clothes stood a woman. The woman had a good figure and a hint of charm. The woman glared at Meng Xiaoqin and said angrily, Yanmei, no matter what, I'm going to kill this kid today. Our matter has been decided. I don't want anyone to disturb us. Meng Xiaoqin stared at Zhou Yanmei and said with a dark face, When has our matter been decided? Don't talk nonsense. Zhou Yanmei stared at Meng Xiaoqin and said with an embarrassed expression, Not long ago. You will soon receive a message from Uncle. Yanmei, come over and stand here with me. Meng Xiaoqin looked at her with a cold face. How did this? Miss, the master has sent a message. At that moment, the old woman standing next to Zhou Yanmei interrupted her and handed over the communication stone plate. What? Zhou Yanmei was slightly stunned. She looked at the message on the communication stone plate, and her expression changed slightly. Miss, the marriage between the Zhou clan and the Meng clan has just been decided. The matter between you and young Master Meng has already been decided. The old woman stood off to the side and transmitted her voice. But I don't like this Meng. As she spoke, her expression changed. She didn't like Meng Xiaoqin. But if the clan really decided on this matter, then it was definitely not something she could change. She would definitely marry Meng Xiaoqin in the future. Young Miss, young Master Meng likes you. Moreover, young Master Meng's talent is very outstanding. Things cannot be changed. Do not let young Master Meng be dissatisfied with you. Otherwise, in the future. The old woman continued to send her voice transmission. She did not finish her words, but she knew that young Miss would understand. She had watched young Miss grow up and knew her character. I understand. Zhou Yanmei took a deep breath and nodded slowly. The ending was already set. She wanted to be married to Meng Xiaoqin. It was not worth it to delay the rest of her life for a man whom she only had a good impression of. The smart her knew that she should make such a decision. He saved my life in the sword tomb at least. Let him go. Zhou Yanmei raised her head to look at Meng Xiaoqin as she spoke and walked straight over. Meng Xiaoqin saw her walking over, and a smile appeared on his face. Yanmei, this won't do. If he dares to compete with me for you, he'll have to pay the price. This cannot be changed. All right then, I'll leave first. Zhou Yanmei frowned slightly and wanted to leave this place. There's no need to be in such a hurry. Later we'll leave together. My clan's people are not far away. Meng Xiaoqin looked at Zhou Yanmei and said somewhat domineeringly. All right. Zhou Yanmei pondered for a moment and nodded. At this point in this area, Meng Xiaoqin was standing on the left with more than 10 people, while on the right, a young man in tattered clothes stood there alone. Damn, this young man is too miserable. He saved Miss Zhou Er's life, and now he's going to be killed because of it. And Miss Zhou Er actually didn't stop him. This is a typical woman who is like a disaster. This Miss Zhou Er is really ruthless. Other people saved her, but she was attacked because of her. And she actually didn't say a word. Fuck, doesn't Miss Zhou Er have a good impression of him? Is this love? Fuck, you believe in love, you idiot. Chapter 12:10. The Name of Sword Demon No. When the crowd around saw this scene, they were stunned. They looked at the lonely young man with sympathy. He had saved someone and ended up harming himself. This was simply. Furthermore, everyone felt some contempt for Miss Zhou's cold and heartless behavior. However, some of them also understood why Miss Zhou would do such a thing. It was for the sake of their own future. If a man doesn't do it for himself, the heavens will destroy him. You are really ungrateful. When Wang Xian saw this scene, a look of disdain appeared in his eyes. In the supernatural continent, where the strong were respected, all desires appeared to be naked. Kid, if you dare to steal a woman from me, Meng Xiaoqin, you will only become a corpse. When Meng Xiaoqin heard the discussions of the people around him, his expression did not change at all. He stared at the young man in tattered clothes and said coldly, in this world, as long as one was strong enough, they could ignore everything. The brutal and ferocious dragon race, which ruled over everything, had once massacred hundreds of millions of humans and dozens of demonic beast races. But now when it came to the dragon race, there was only respect and no condemnation. This was the strong. There was no need to pay attention to the eyes of the weak. I have no enmity with you. If you want to kill me, then come. The shabby-clothed young man's gaze swept past Zhou Yanmei. His gaze was incomparably cold as he stared at Meng Xiaoqin. With a wave of his hand, a 2-meter-long greatsword appeared in his hand. Oh, a void interpretation level greatsword. Haha. When the shabby-clothed young man took out the greatsword in his hand, Meng Xiaoqin was slightly taken aback. Soon after, an excited expression appeared on his face, and he couldn't help but laugh out loud. I didn't expect that a wild kid like you would actually have a void interpretation level greatsword. This is great, this is great. He laughed, and his eyes stared greedily at the greatsword. Hiss, I didn't expect that such a ragged-looking guy would actually have a void interpretation level weapon. This Meng Xiaoqin's group's luck is really good. The surrounding people were slightly stunned, and their gazes were also somewhat heated as they stared at the great sword that contained a terrifying power. Many people's eyes also revealed an incomparably greedy expression. However, after looking at Meng Xiaoqin and the others, many people dispelled this thought. However, in the surroundings, 2 profound void tier first level experts looked over, their eyes flickering. A profound void tier first level weapon was worth at least 20 to 30 billion mid-grade spirit stones. This was a huge sum of money to a profound void tier expert. Go. Kill him. Take the weapon from his hands. Meng Xiaoqin shouted excitedly to the surrounding people. Yes. Behind him, there were more than a dozen people. Among them, one was a half-step void interpretation expert. 3 were at the 9th rank of the extraordinary realm, and the rest were at the 7th or 8th rank of the extraordinary realm. These were all the elites of the Meng family. Kiki kid, put the weapon in your hands on the ground and commit suicide. We'll leave your corpse intact. A middle-aged man stared coldly at the young man in tattered clothes and roared ferociously. Damn you, it's all of you. The young man in tattered clothes shot out an intense killing intent from his eyes. He held his greatsword with both hands and charged forward. Kill him. The half-step void interpretation expert snorted coldly and threw his gloved arms forward. Die. The people behind him also launched their attacks. That young man is going to die in the hands of the Meng clan. How pitiful. It's not just pitiful, he's extremely unlucky. When the people around saw this scene, they discussed coldly. Hee, this group of people wants to kill him. They are really courting death. Wang Xian, who was standing outside, watched this scene with interest. The young man in tattered clothes was the fated person whom Wang Xian had met. He was a dual elemental cultivator of metal and water, a young man at level 9 of the supernatural realm. Now that he had obtained the inheritance of the metal and water sword principle, even though his strength was still at level 9 of the supernatural realm, he was able to fight against a half-step void interpretation stage powerhouse. If he were to combine this with the great sword of level 1 of the metal and water dual elemental void interpretation stage in his hand, he would be able to kill the middle-aged man, who had just stepped into the half-step void interpretation stage. Water sword. At this moment, the young man in tattered clothes charged forward, the great sword in his hand emitting a blue light. A blue great sword that was 10 meters in size condensed from water energy charged forward. In the center of this blue great sword, there were dozens of small golden swords. An attack looked extremely strange. The water sword directly faced the Meng clan's attack. Buzz! When the water sword collided with the attacks, ripples appeared. The golden sword inside exploded, and the blue sword-shaped water energy on the outside also exploded. Under the sunlight, it emitted a beautiful light. The exploding water swords turned into small blue swords, and their speed suddenly increased several times as they charged forward. What? When they felt the blue water swords, the expressions of the members of the Meng clan changed drastically. Be careful. The half-step void interpretation expert of the Meng clan's expression changed drastically, and he immediately warned loudly. Blue dazzling sword. The young man in tattered clothes didn't change his expression. The large sword in his hand emitted a dazzling blue light. The blue light was even more dazzling than the sun, and it illuminated a radius of more than 1,000 meters. Divine ability blue radiant sword. Ah! At this moment a scream sounded. The half-step void interpretation expert wanted to save his clansmen, but when he saw the second attack, his expression changed. How is this possible? He's clearly at transcendent level 9. How can he release such a terrifying attack? He was shocked and quickly blocked it. In the surroundings, other than him, and the other 3 transcendent level 9 experts, they died under the water sword. The other 3 Type 9 Transcendents had also activated their defensive abilities to barely defend, their faces filled with fear. Bastard kill. When the half-step void interpretation expert saw that half of his tribesmen had been killed, his face was filled with rage. His body moved, and he charged towards the young man in tattered clothes. The other 3 Type 9 Transcendents had solemn expressions as they charged forward. They had never expected that a kid who looked like a wild mountain would actually possess such terrifying strength. What? Damn it. He clearly has the strength of a transcendent level rank 9. How could he erupt with such terrifying strength? It must be because of the void interpretation weapon in his hands. Kill him, kill him. Meng Xiaoqin's expression changed drastically when he saw that more than 10 of his subordinates had been killed in an instant. He roared loudly. His eyes became even more fervent as he stared at the huge sword. Zhou Yinmei's gaze flickered when she saw his incomparably ferocious appearance. However, her gaze slowly turned cold. If you want to kill me, then I will kill you. Jin Fa. The young man in tattered clothes was like a violent tsunami. With a loud roar, he cast another divine ability. Jin Fa. Metal attribute divine ability. What? He was clearly casting a water-type divine ability just now. Why did he suddenly cast a metal-type divine ability? A dual-element cultivator of metal and water. My god, this is a monster, a dual-element cultivator. Chapter 12:11, Sword Demon's Name 3. Dual-attributed cultivator. When everyone saw the young man in tattered clothes use his metal attribute attack again, everyone was in an uproar. Everyone was very clear about how terrifying dual-attributed cultivators were. Everyone who dared to cultivate dual-attributed was either a madman or a peerless genius. However, this level 9 transcendent dual-attributed young man in front of them was clearly not a madman, but a peerless genius. Dual-attributed, and he has even cultivated to level 9 transcendent. His strength is definitely enough to ascend the prodigy role. This is really beyond everyone's expectations. Dual-attributed, who would have thought that a dual-attributed genius would appear? No wonder he can fight against a half-step void interpretation. He completely has the ability to fight against opponents of a higher level. Everyone was in an uproar, their eyes wide open as they stared in shock at the young man in tattered clothes, who was fighting against 3 level 9 transcendents and a half-step void interpretation expert. At this moment, his tattered clothes made him look even taller. Only a monster who trained hard could cultivate his dual attributes to such a level. What's going on in this demi-human graveyard? A month ago, a peerless genius who seemed to have dual attributes directly destroyed Heavenly Sword Star. And now another one has appeared. Heavens, isn't this letting people live? A young man sighed, looking at the shabby-clothed young man with envy and reverence. He fought against 4 experts of the Meng clan, and wasn't at a disadvantage at all. He's so strong, as expected of a peerless genius with dual attributes. An old man at the side stared at the battle in the arena and sighed. The moment the dual attribute cultivator appeared, the entire arena was in shock. How can this be? No, he must die, he must die. When Meng Xiaoqin saw the tattered clothes of the young man suddenly erupt with dual attributed cultivation, his expression turned incomparably ugly. His eyes revealed a crazed envy as he roared in a low voice. A dual attributed peerless genius, who had even cultivated to transcendent level 9. In the future, he had a very high chance of becoming a peerless expert who could shake an entire region. To become enemies with such a person, he had to completely eliminate him. Otherwise, there would be endless trouble in the future. How can this be? How is this possible? Zhou Yinmei, who was at the side, also had a face full of shock, staring at the young man in the battlefield in disbelief. Her eyes suddenly revealed a look of regret. If she could catch up to such a peerless genius, even the Zhou clan would definitely support her with all their might. Where the golden sword? Aha! Suddenly, in the battlefield, after an ice-cold shout, a miserable sound was heard. Everyone was slightly shocked. 3 level 9 transcendents fell to the ground and lost their life force. The half-step void interpretation expert was heavily injured. How is this possible? Meng Xiaoqin cried out in shock. His body trembled, and he hurriedly took out his communication stone plate. Was this the terror of a dual-element expert? This sentence appeared in the minds of everyone around. He actually mastered the combined attack of 2 types of golden water sword principles. His talent is really extraordinary. Wang Xian, who thought that he would need another 5 to 6 minutes to finish the battle, was astonished when he saw the golden piercing sword. He had mastered 2 types of golden water sword principles in a month. His talent was definitely terrifying. Yu, the half-step void interpretation expert of the Meng clan, had an extremely pale face. He had a huge sword wound on his abdomen. When he saw the ragged-clothed young man staring at him with killing intent, his expression changed drastically, and he retreated. Those who kill will be killed. The ragged-clothed young man's eyes were devoid of any emotion. He raised the large sword in his hand and slashed directly at him. Ah! In less than 20 moves, the half-step void interpretation expert of the Meng clan died. He turned his head and stared at Meng Xiaoqin. What do you want to do? What do you want to do? I'm telling you, don't act recklessly. Meng Xiaoqin saw the young man in tattered clothes staring at him. His face changed drastically and he retreated. He no longer had the arrogance from before. He no longer had the arrogance of being a butcher and being a fish. His face was filled with cold sweat as his eyes flickered. Zhou Yanmei's expression was extremely ugly when she saw this scene. She looked at the tattered young man and hesitated for a moment before saying, "You should stop. The Meng clan is very strong." Bizizi. The tattered young man turned his head and stared at Zhou Yanmei. His eyes were filled with killing intent. Zhou Yanmei's expression changed drastically, while the old woman's expression also changed slightly. All of you deserve to die, the young man in shabby clothes said coldly. This is a complete reversal of the situation just now. Everyone thought that the Meng clan was going to exterminate that young man. Who would have thought? Who would have thought? Haha. Now Meng Xiaoqin and Zhou Yanmei are finished. When the crowd saw this scene, they couldn't help but mock. Just a moment ago, they wanted to kill others and snatch their treasures. Now they have become fish meat. You have a good temperament. If you continue to grow, you can become a powerhouse. Wang Xian looked at the young man in tattered clothes. A hint of satisfaction appeared on his face. It was not in vain for him to give him that huge sword. It didn't disappoint him. Suddenly, he turned his head and looked at the sky on the left. Who dares to kill a member of the Meng clan? They deserve to die 10,000 deaths. At this moment, a deep voice rang out from the sky. It was so loud that it covered an area of 5 to 6 kilometers around the Sword Mansion. Hearing this, everyone was slightly shocked. It's a member of the Meng clan. Oh my god. Why are there so many people from the Meng clan? Why are they rushing here so quickly? 2 void interpretation experts? Oh my god. The Meng clan only has a total of 6 void interpretation experts, and 2 of them are here. How can there be so many people? 2 insightful emptiness realm experts, and more than half of the Meng clan's elites are here. There are at least 5 or 6 half-insightful emptiness realm experts. The faces of everyone in front of the Sword Mansion changed drastically. They stared in shock at the 200 or so people flying toward them in the sky. That's right, there were more than 200 people, and all of them were the Meng clan's elites. Obviously, the Meng clan must have something important to bring so many clansmen to the Ladyboy graveyard. That dual-element Peerless Heaven's favorite is going to die. His luck is really not good. The Meng clan's people are actually nearby. Some people's expressions changed slightly, as they sighed on behalf of the young man in tattered clothes. Haha, we all deserve to die. I think you deserve to die. No one can save your dog life today. Meng Xiaoqin hurriedly turned his head. When he saw his clansmen arrive, his face revealed an excited malevolence. He puffed out his chest and stared at the shabby-clothed young man as he roared. AI, you're the one courting death. You can't blame anyone else. Zhou Yanmei saw the Meng clansmen arrive, and also let out a slight sigh of relief. Her gaze was ice-cold as she spoke to him. When the shabby-clothed young man saw the over 200 people flying over, his expression changed drastically. Without the slightest hesitation, he directly fled into the distance. So, Hong. Suddenly, a wind sword that was at least 1,000 meters in size was inserted directly in front of the young man in tattered clothes. This caused panic to appear in his eyes. A mountain brat killed my clansman and still wants to escape? In your dreams. A green figure flashed and instantly stood on the wind sword that was 1,000 meters in size that was inserted into the ground, arrogantly staring at the young man in tattered clothes. The young man in tattered clothes had a drastic change in expression. There was a hint of bitterness in his eyes. Why are you so unlucky? 2 experts at the first level of the see-through realm. Let's test my current strength. When Wang Xian saw this scene, He thought of the young man in tattered clothes who had been kneeling in the sword tomb for more than an hour. He shook his head slowly. Being surrounded by 2 see-through realm experts, and more than 200 extraordinary realm experts, that fellow was almost 100% dead. He looked at that unlucky child with some ridicule. Unlucky child, fortunately you met me. I'll save you one last time. Chapter 12:12. The Name of the Sword Demon 4. Wang Xian had a good impression of the young man in tattered clothes. Back then, he had given Lung Haotsong's golden water sword principle to him, and saved his life. He had knelt in the direction of the sword mansion for a whole hour. He could feel the nature of this young man. In addition, he had promised Lung Haotsong to find a successor for him, so that this successor could bring the golden water sword principle to greater heights. Even though Lung Haotsong was a dead man. After all these, Wang Xian decided to make his move. With a slight movement of his palm, a long sword appeared in his hand. It was a black long sword. The long sword was extremely deep. This long sword was a non-attributed long sword. Among those of the same level, this long sword was the least valuable. However, this long sword was the most suitable for Wang Xian. The name of the sword was Demon-Free. It was forged from demon-free stones. It was a long sword of the second level of the see-through realm that Wang Xian obtained from the sword mansion. You want to escape? I want to see where you are going to run to. Meng Xiaoqin was excited when he saw the clan elder blocking the escape path of the young man in tattered clothes. He shouted coldly, "Xiaoqin, what's going on?" The middle-aged man who was standing on the 1,000-meter-long terrifying wind sword glanced at the young man in tattered clothes and asked, "Clan elder, this fellow killed our Meng clan's clansmen. Even half-step void interpretation and 3 rank 9 transcendence died at his hands. The weapon in his hands is a void interpretation level weapon, and he's also a golden water dual attributed rank 9 transcendent cultivator. Clan elder, we must not let him escape." Meng Xiaoqin bowed to the middle-aged man and hurriedly said. As he spoke, the Meng clan's over 200 people directly surrounded him in the center. What? A dual-element cultivator has reached level 9 transcendent. Meng Xiaoqin's words caused even the Meng clan elder to reveal a surprised expression. His eyes were filled with shock as he stared at the young man in tattered clothes. This was the first time he had met such a monstrous genius. This talent was definitely worthy of being called a chosen. No matter how monstrous his talent is, no matter how peerless his magnificence is, before he grows up, he will be courting death if he dares to provoke our Meng clan. An icy voice rang out from behind. An old man slowly flew over, his aura locked onto the tattered young man in the middle. He dares to kill a member of our Meng clan. No matter what genius he is, he will die. That's right. He must die today. He must die no matter what. No one can save him. The surrounding Meng clan youths glared at the tattered youth with killing intent. No matter how monstrous your talent is, how peerless your magnificence is, or how outstanding your talent is, as long as you don't grow up, you'll still be a weakling. Zhou Yanmei's eyes were cold as she stared at him, muttering to herself. Everyone around them sighed when they saw this scene. Geniuses and prodigies could not be called powerhouses before they grew up. The young man in the middle, whose clothes were tattered, was filled with bitterness and helplessness. Slowly, a determined expression appeared on his face. He gripped the large sword in his hands tightly. He did not speak and remained silent. This was a kind of resolution. Let me personally kill a peerless heaven's favorite. The middle-aged man standing on the 1,000-meter greatsword said slowly. The greatsword beneath him disappeared, and a green longsword appeared in his hand. To be able to die under my sword after killing you with one strike is also an honor for you. He stared calmly at the shabby-clothed youth. Hee, isn't it a bit too much for a clan to bully an unlucky fellow? Just as the elder of the Meng clan was about to make his move, just as his clothes were in tatters, and he was about to defend himself at the last minute, a voice suddenly resounded throughout the entire area. The sudden voice caused everyone to be slightly stunned. A look of astonishment appeared on their faces. Even the two experts at the first level of the see-through realm were also astonished. At this moment, who would dare to say such words? Furthermore, the voice sounded so young. Was it some kid who didn't know what was good for him? However, the few young men beside Wang Xian stared at him in shock. Wang Xian had a smile on his face. The people around him could not see his smile. They could only see the black mask that he had created to cover his face. He slowly walked towards the center. He held the demon-free sword in his hand and swept his gaze across everyone in the Meng clan. Where did this reckless fellow come from? A half-step void interpretation expert from the Meng clan looked at Wang Xian coldly. His eyes were flashing with killing intent. The reckless person might not be me. Wang Xian continued to speak indifferently. He continued to walk forward in a carefree manner. When the young man who was surrounded by the green mountain in the center heard Wang Xian's voice, his body could not help but tremble. He widened his eyes and stared at Wang Xian with an excited expression. This figure slowly overlapped with a shadow in his mind. It's senior, he mumbled with an excited expression. When Wang Xian heard his soft voice, he swept his gaze across the entire Meng clan. I will protect his life. His calm and unquestionable voice entered everyone's ears once again. Who do you think you are? You're just playing tricks. When Meng Xiaoqin heard Wang Xian's words, he stared at him with an embarrassed expression. Everyone in the Meng clan's face also darkened slowly, as they stared at Wang Xian, who was wearing a mask. Who is this? He actually wants to protect that young man. Judging from his voice, he sounds so young. If he wants to protect that young man, he must have the strength to deal with the two first-level void interpretation stage powerhouses in the Meng clan. Clearly, it's impossible for him to have such a young voice. When the crowd saw Wang Xian walking over calmly, they were discussing in a low voice with astonished faces. I think you want to die together with him. The middle-aged elder of the Meng clan drew the green longsword in his hand lightly and let out a gust of wind. He stared at Wang Xian coldly. Haha, let's give it a try then. Wang Xian looked at the crowd of the Meng clan and laughed out loud. Then let's kill him. Kill. The moment Wang Xian finished his last word, the demon-free sword in his hand was swung directly at the two experts of the first level of the see-through realm. Water sword. Gold-piercing sword. The powerful gold water sword principle instantly attacked them. You're courting death. The eyes of the two Meng clan experts of the first level of the see-through realm revealed killing intent. The long swords in their hands went up to meet the attack directly. At the instant when they attacked, Wang Xian's attack did not stop. True Sword Rain. True Sword Rain, an area of effect attack. The demon-free sword in Wang Xian's hand pointed toward the sky. In an instant, strange golden and blue clouds gathered in the sky. Clang, clang, clang. Within the strange clouds that covered a radius of 2 kilometers, a sword rain shot out directly and concentrated on the group of people from the Meng clan. What? He actually dared to go against so many strong people from the Meng clan. His attack is very strong. Retreat, let's retreat quickly. The huge cloud had already covered many people in the surroundings. While they were shocked that Wang Xian actually dared to go against the Meng clan, they were also afraid of the strange cloud in the sky. Everyone quickly hid into the distance. What was going to happen next might be a battle between the insightful emptiness realm experts. Chapter 12-13. Name of the Sword Demon 5. The sword in the water pierced through the golden sword and attacked the two insightful void martial experts of the Meng clan. The huge and strange clouds in the sky covered all the people of the Meng clan. The sword rain attacked downwards. The group of people in front of the sword mansion hid in all directions in fear. Since you want to die with this kid, then die. When the two elders of the Meng clan saw that Wang Xian dared to attack them directly, a terrifying killing intent flashed in their eyes. The long swords in their hands attacked the underwater sword and the gold-piercing sword. What? When they collided with the underwater sword and the gold-piercing sword, shock appeared on their faces. Wind Soul. Blind Eye. The long swords in their hands shook, and they swung the water sword and the gold-piercing sword to attack again. They thought that they could break these two attacks with one sword, but they didn't expect that these two attacks were so powerful that they were shocked. They were almost as powerful as the divine abilities they used. The sword rain in the sky is also very powerful. When they defeated the sword in the water and the gold-piercing sword 5 or 6 times in a row, the densely packed sword rain in the sky had already fallen. The power of the sword rain came to the sky, making them slightly surprised. Wind shield. Tornado sword. The two immediately met the sword rain in the sky. Ah! Suddenly at this moment screams came from the surroundings. What? Their expressions changed, and they quickly looked around. At this moment, a rain of swords fell from the sky within a 2-kilometer radius of them. The rain of swords not only had the penetration of raindrops, it also had the sharpness of metal attributes. A drop of water could penetrate a stone, but what could a drop of metal sword water penetrate? When the two attributes were completely fused together, the power that erupted was absolutely beyond everyone's imagination. Dual attribute cultivators were able to fight above their level, because they relied on the strength of the combination of the two attributes. What? How is this possible? Oh my God, what is this? Everyone who had retreated from the battle area looked forward with shock on their faces. Countless sword rain fell from the sky, and directly attacked the Meng clan's 200+ people. Under the dense and terrifying sword rain, warriors below rank 8 of the exceptional realm were directly turned into dead souls under the sword rain. 80% of the Meng clan's people, close to 200 people, directly fell under the sword rain's attack. They didn't have the ability to resist at all. Only warriors who had reached rank 8 of the exceptional realm could use their divine abilities to defend and barely resist the sword rain that was attacking them. Sword in the water, piercing golden sword, true sword rain. It's a senior, definitely a senior. The young man in tattered clothes standing at the side looked at Wang Xian in a daze. His eyes were filled with endless gratitude. The last time, when he was about to die in the sword tomb, that figure saved him and gave him a powerful inheritance, a level 1 void interpretation weapon. Today, when he was about to be killed, this figure came to help him kill the enemy. If I, Ren Xingqian, don't die, if one day I get my revenge, I, Ren Xingqian, will definitely do my best to repay your kindness. The tattered young man, Ren Xingqian, had a determined look in his eyes as he tightly gripped the sword in his hand. What a terrifying sword art, dual attributes, it's definitely dual attributes. At this moment, Ling Jianer flew over from the outside. When she saw the battle in front of the sword manor, she was slightly stunned. When she saw the terrifying rain of swords, a look of shock appeared on her face. Dual attributes, 100% dual attributes. However, why is his attribute attack hidden? He actually can't sense it? Ling Jianer looked at the terrifying sword rain and revealed a look of astonishment. The heaven-deceiving pearl could change the fluctuation of attributes, but the nature of the attack could not be changed. Wang Xian was naturally clear about this situation. The heaven-deceiving pearl's purpose was to hide the attacks of his 5 attributes, not to hide his dual attributes. Although dual attributes warriors were monstrous, it was still within the acceptable range of everyone. Such a situation of 5 attributes had never happened in the entire Transcendence continent. Therefore, Wang Xian used the heaven-deceiving pearl to change all his attacks into black. To the people outside, all attacks were black. It was also because of this that the black clouds in the sky made everyone feel strange. Bastard, you killed a member of the Meng clan. Don't even think about escaping today. Kill him. The 2 insightful emptiness realm experts of the Meng clan had extremely gloomy expressions. Their eyes were twitching violently, and their bodies were filled with killing intent. Their bodies moved and they attacked Wang Xian directly. How did it turn out like this? Meng Xiaoqin looked at the 200 dead members of the Meng clan, and his expression was a little stunned. These 200 over people were all elite disciples of the Meng clan. The Meng clan had sent out so many people because a large-scale mansion was discovered in the tomb of the demi-human. However, now he was killed by a powerhouse who appeared out of nowhere just because he wanted to kill a kid from the mountains. This made his head a little muddled. When you kill others, you must be prepared to be killed. Haha. Wang Xian laughed maniacally. He didn't show any signs of fear, as he looked at the two insightful emptiness realm experts who were attacking him. He brandished the demon-free sword in his hand, and unleashed an extreme explosion of ice and fire. The extremely hot sea of water, and the golden wood explosion, met the two of them directly. Damn it, this guy is so strong. The two elders of the Meng clan felt the terror of the three attacks, and their faces turned gloomy. The opponent was actually able to gain the upper hand in a one-on-two battle. This made their eyes filled with solemnity. Boom, boom, boom. The sound of explosions rang out. The battle between the three insightful emptiness realm experts had affected a radius of 5 to 6 kilometers. Everyone hurriedly retreated backward once again. Wang Xian's eyes were as sharp as a torch. He combined skills one by one, and attacked the two of them without any hesitation. He now had 7 to 8 skills, and he had almost 10 combined skills. With each attack, he would directly release the skills and combined skills. With each attack, he had to make the two insightful emptiness realm experts resist it completely. For a moment, the wind and clouds in front of the entire sword mansion surged. Terrifying attacks surged and spread over a dozen kilometers. Everyone within a dozen kilometers could sense the attacks from the insightful emptiness realm experts. Kill that kid first. Meng Xiaoqin saw that the mysterious person who had suddenly appeared in the sky was engaged in a fierce battle with the two elders of the Meng clan. His face was extremely anxious. He stared ahead and saw Ren Xingchen standing there. He gritted his teeth and roared ferociously. Around him, there were about 30 disciples of the Meng clan. However, the weakest of these 30 disciples was at the 8th rank of the extraordinary realm. When they heard Meng Xiaoqin's words, they looked at each other. Their eyes were ice cold as they stared at Ren Xingchen. They were filled with killing intent. This brat who was the main culprit must die. Chapter 12-14, Sword Demon Number 6. Haha, do you think I, Ren Xingchen, am afraid of you? If you want to kill me, you will have to pay a terrible price. Ren Xingchen saw the rest of the Meng clan staring at him, and his face was full of fighting spirit. Even if there were 5 or 6 half-step void interpretation experts among them, he was not afraid at all. Kill! More than 30 people of the Meng clan emitted a cold aura and directly attacked Ren Xingchen. The 30-plus people were extremely aggressive. Even though the Meng clan had lost more than 200 people, the most elite and most powerful 30 people had survived. The Meng clan's people have attacked again. That mysterious person has been restrained by 2 void interpretation experts. I reckon that young man is still in danger. The surrounding people watched from afar. When they saw the Meng clan's 30-plus experts charge over once again, they whispered, "I've said it before. I'll protect his life. Since you all want to die early, I'll fulfill your wish." Just when the Meng clan's people below had yet to rush over, a cold voice came from above. The bodies of the Meng clan's people who were rushing over stiffened slightly. A trace of fear appeared on their faces as they hurriedly looked towards the sky. "You still want to save that brat in the battle with us? Let me tell you, with your strength, you can't protect him. The Meng clan has declared his death. No one can protect him." One of the elders of the Meng clan shouted angrily when he heard Wang Xian's arrogant words. "Hee, with just the two of you." Wang Xian held the demon-free sword in his hand and waved it. The Earth Dragon shield blocked their attacks directly. Light and darkness. At the instant he blocked the attacks of the two of them, Wang Xian's body shook. Darkness suddenly spread out from his body into the surrounding space. He was like a demon. Even the sun in the sky could not shine into his darkness. The Abhijna of light and darkness. At this moment, the light and darkness Abhijna that he had comprehended through the heart of light and darkness was also a combined Abhijna. Wang Xian had never used this Abhijna before. Now that he had the heaven-deceiving pearl, he could use it without restraint. Buzz! The darkness spread out rapidly and covered an area of 2 kilometers. In this space, everyone's speed, perception, and attacks were reduced except for him. However, in this space, Wang Xian's attack and speed could be more than doubled. Whoosh! The moment the darkness enveloped him, Wang Xian's eyes were fixed on the ground, and his body started to move. Be careful! Everyone from the Ming clan, who was enveloped by the darkness, had a drastic change in expression. They hurriedly shouted, "Die!" In this space, this group of martial artists who had yet to reach the insightful void tier were nothing but ants in his eyes. Wang Xian was so fast that even the two old men from the Ming clan could not react in time. Pooh pooh pooh. In the light and darkness, Wang Xian seemed to have turned into a phantom demon. The demon-free sword in his hand was like the scythe of the Grim Reaper who reaped lives. In this area, the members of the Ming clan didn't have the strength to resist at all. One after another they were pierced through. They didn't even have the chance to scream before they died under Wang Xian's sword. Damn it, you mysterious thing, go to hell! In the sky, the two elders of the Ming clan felt the vitality of the people below disappearing rapidly. Their faces were furious as they roared loudly. Wang Xian raised his head and revealed a cold expression. The real battle had just begun. Now he was going to unleash his full strength. Kill one of them first. Wang Xian's eyes were extremely cold. With a move of his body, he charged towards the two insightful emptiness realm experts in the sky. Aspect, Heavenly Wind Sword. One of the insightful emptiness realm experts could no longer hold it in, and unleashed his strongest attack. Dharma Idol, Heavenly Wind Sword. The strongest attack of the Dimension Sundering Realm was aimed at Wang Xian. A dark green longsword that was surrounded by a green hurricane was gradually reduced to 2 meters in size. However, the hurricane around the longsword engulfed all living beings within a radius of 1,000 meters. Even the dark and light supernatural powers were trembling violently under the Dharma Idol of an expert of the Dimension Sundering Realm. The power of a Dharma Idol was different from that of a Dharma Idol. After the power of a Dharma Idol was unleashed, it would dissipate rapidly. On the other hand, the Dharma Idol could last for dozens of seconds or even a few minutes. During these few minutes, the attacks of the insightful emptiness realm expert would be multiplied by several times. This was the strongest part of the Dharma Idol. Wind shield, trap him. Damn you, go to hell. The eyes of another insightful emptiness realm expert of the Ming clan were extremely red. His entire body trembled, and the invisible wind energy in the entire area surged towards Wang Xian. A huge restriction appeared around Wang Xian. If you want to trap me, water will flood the Golden Mountain. Wang Xian's figure moved, and a protective shield formed around him. Fire territory. A cold expression appeared in his eyes. A huge flaming mountain appeared in front of him, and attacked the two elders of the Ming clan head-on. Hiss, what a powerful attack. However, Heavenly Wind Sword slash. The Heavenly Wind Sword that was surrounded by tornadoes slashed directly at the fire territory. The terrifying energy caused the fire territory to explode. Die! The fire territory was defeated, but the Heavenly Wind Sword was not completely defeated. The tornadoes around the Dharma Idol Heavenly Wind Sword dissipated under the collision of the fire territory, leaving behind a resplendent green longsword that attacked Wang Xian. Haha, die! The Ming clan's elder, who was controlling the Heavenly Wind Sword, revealed a ferocious expression. The Ming clan's elder waved his arm, and a wind shield flew towards him rapidly. This is the time. Wang Xian narrowed his eyes. His speed did not slow down at all. Instead, he increased his speed and met the resplendent green wind sword head-on. Die! Just as Wang Xian was about to collide with the Heavenly Wind Sword, the two elders of the Ming clan roared loudly. Light and dark void. Wang Xian's figure trembled as he displayed the most heaven-defying talent of the strange demon clan Void. Buzz! The wind shield surrounded him, as the resplendent Heavenly Wind Sword pierced into his chest. Just as the two of them were smiling, Wang Xian's figure became illusory. Star explosion! A cold voice was heard, causing the faces of the two elders of the Ming clan to turn stiff. The moment they saw this mysterious fellow being killed by him, the other party suddenly unleashed an even more terrifying attack. This caused the smiles of the two elders to stiffen and their pupils to dilate. Star Explosion. A three-elemental fusion battle skill. The target of Wang Xian's attack was not the Void Walker, who had released his Dharma idol, but the other elder of the Ming clan. Explode. Under the defense of the two Ming clan elders who were terrified, the starburst erupted. Boom, boom, boom. A terrifying sound reverberated within a radius of dozens of kilometers. Even though it was a long distance away, there were still people who were looking in their direction. Their faces were filled with astonishment. What a terrifying aftershock of the attack. It must be a battle between at least a level 2 insightful emptiness realm expert, right? Some people stopped and looked towards the direction of the sword mansion, their eyes flashing. Chapter 12:15, Sword Demon's Name 7. What a terrifying explosion. What happened inside? Hiss. When this black space appeared, the terrifying attacks inside came wave after wave. Around the sword mansion, when the stars exploded, everyone's bodies trembled as they looked inside in fear. They all took a deep breath, their faces filled with shock. The appearance of that mysterious person was simply too shocking. At this moment, in the space of light and darkness, the Ming clan elder, who had been struck by the starburst, was struck by a terrifying explosion. The defense that had just been gathered around him instantly collapsed, and the terrifying attack of the three elements of metal, fire, and earth directly struck his body. It was like the explosion of a meteorite, and the terrifying attack caused his arm to instantly disappear. The void penetration armor on his chest lasted for less than a second before it collapsed. Following that, his body began to collapse. His eyes were wide open and filled with fear. His body collapsed at a speed visible to the naked eye. Bang! In the end, his body exploded and dissipated safely. No, eighth brother. The expression of the Ming clan elder, who was using the Heavenly Wind sword, changed drastically. Now it's your turn. Wang Xian revealed a smile when he saw an elder of the Ming clan being killed. Light and darkness were usually able to produce a terrifying effect during a battle. After the first-level void interpretation expert used his Dharma idol, he would need at least a period of time before he could use it again. Without his strongest technique, he was no match for Wang Xian. Gilded Gold Sword Pursuit. Wang Xian did not hesitate at all. With his abundant energy, he did not even use up half of it. The demon-free sword in his hand emitted a golden glow and attacked him directly. How is this possible? The last remaining Ming clan elder was extremely terrified. When he faced Wang Xian again, a hint of fear flashed across his face. That's right, fear. This mysterious person in front of him was simply too strange. His attacks contained at least 2 attributes. Moreover, he could unleash unimaginable attacks from time to time. This caused a hint of fear to surge up in his heart. This kind of bottomless enemy was the most terrifying. Looking at the gilded gold sword that was attacking him, he could only grit his teeth and execute his supernatural ability to meet it head-on. Wang Xian moved forward and brandished the long sword in his hand. He attacked continuously. In the Golden Water Sword principle, there were not only the combined attacks of the 2 elements of the metal and water, but also the usage of sword moves. With complete control of Wang Xian, the energy of the metal and water intersected continuously, forcing the Ming clan elder to defend passively. No, I'm not his match. Run! The Ming clan elder's expression changed drastically. Wind Shadow. His body moved. After receiving Wang Xian's attack, he fled into the distance. It's too late to escape. Wang Xian revealed a cold expression. He shook the long sword in his hand and shouted, Water Tomb. The binding dual attribute combined attack instantly restrained his speed. Take another move from me, flame-piercing gold. Wang Xian's eyes were filled with excitement as he stabbed the demon-free sword in his hand forward. Flame-piercing gold was the second 3-attribute combined attack that Wang Xian had comprehended. Oh no, why does he have so many terrifying killing moves? The last elder of the Ming clan was drenched in cold sweat. He had already used his Dharma idol and had no way to deal with this terrifying attack. He quickly dodged to the side. However, The moment he dodged, the flame pierced through the gold and exploded. It split into dozens of small swords. The small swords covered the front and attacked rapidly. Wind possess. He gritted his teeth and roared. His clothes whistled and emitted a rustling sound. A strong wind attribute surrounded his entire body. He tried his best to dodge Wang Xian's attack. Bang! 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 When the small swords attacked, it was another terrifying threat of death. Explode! His face was livid, his body shook, and the armor on his body went up to meet the swords. Bang! 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 The armor of the first level of the see-through realm went up against the small swords and quickly collapsed. The power of the flame-penetrating gold continued to attack him. The last clan elder of the Ming clan had a face full of shock. The long sword in his hand stood in front of him, blocking his vital points. Bang bang bang! The small sword landed on his long sword, causing his arm to tremble violently. The position that was not blocked by the long sword was directly pierced through by the terrifying flame-piercing gold small sword. However, for the experts of the first rank of the profound void martial stage, as long as they did not hit their vital points, they would not die so easily. Bang bang bang! Another 5 or 6 small swords landed on his longsword. His entire face was extremely pale as he flew backward rapidly. When the fire-penetrating gold attack had completely dissipated, he spat out a large mouthful of fresh blood. The fresh blood mixed with his internal organs as he tried his best to escape into the distance. He wanted to survive. He wanted to escape. A dying struggle. Wang Xian's cold voice sounded from behind him. The body of this insightful emptiness realm expert trembled slightly. His entire body was filled with fresh blood. There was no time to heal him. Wang Xian's figure flashed and appeared directly behind him. The demon-free sword in his hand pierced through his heart directly. Buzz! At this moment, the surrounding light and dark energy were completely exhausted. The darkness that covered a 2-kilometer radius disappeared. The sun shone brightly. In the void, the black demon-free sword in Wang Xian's hand was frozen. It pierced through the elder of the Ming clan. When the darkness disappeared, everyone saw this scene. Along with this shocking scene, there were the corpses of more than 30 experts of the Ming clan on the ground. There was also the corpse of another void interpretation expert. As for that mysterious young man, there wasn't the slightest bit of blood or injury on his body. Under the gazes of the surrounding crowd, the long sword in his hand was gently pulled out. The corpse of another insightful emptiness realm expert of the Ming clan fell towards the ground. Bang! The corpse fell onto the ground with a heavy sound, as if it had smashed into everyone's heart. 2 insightful emptiness realm level 1 experts had fallen. They had been killed by a mysterious swordsman. More than 200 elite members of the Ming clan had been easily killed. Gulp! Some of the people around couldn't help but gulp as they looked at the mysterious figure in shock. So powerful. He killed 2 rank 1 void interpretation experts by himself. Most importantly, his voice and figure make him look so young. One of the girls widened her eyes and mumbled, "Bang! Senior, thank you for saving me again. Thank you for your grace." At this moment, Ren Xingqian kneeled on the ground and bowed respectfully to Wang Xian. "Senior, can you take me as your disciple? Can you let me follow you? I'm willing to do anything for you." He raised his head full of respect, eyes full of desire said. Chapter 12:16. The Name of the Sword Demon 8. In front of the sword mansion, a mysterious young man stood in the void with a black longsword in his hand. Below him, there were more than 200 corpses lying on the ground, including 2 half-step void interpretation level corpses. In the middle, a young man was kneeling there. Around him were more than 1,000 people with shocked expressions. Wang Xian was floating in the sky. His gaze swept around and looked at the young man kneeling below him. Upon hearing his words, his expression didn't change at all. Take him in as a disciple. Be an ox or a horse. Wang Xian moved his body and landed on the ground slowly. He swept his cold gaze across the corpses around him. With a move of his arm, He kept all of them into his interspatial ring. Master, please take me in as a disciple. Please let me serve you by your side. I beg you. Ren Xingqian saw Wang Xian flying below and ignoring him. He knelt on the ground and shouted loudly again with an excited expression. As he spoke, he kowtowed to Wang Xian. When everyone around saw this scene, they were shocked. Wang Xian looked at Ren Xingqian and shook his head lightly. I will not take you in as my disciple. What? That young man wants to acknowledge this mysterious person as his master, but he refused. You have to know that this young man is a peerless heaven's favorite with both metal and water attributes. Who wouldn't want to have such a monstrous disciple? He actually rejected it. He even refused. This young man in shabby clothes has such monstrous talent, yet he still refused. You have to know that if this young man doesn't perish, he will definitely be a mighty powerhouse in the future. When the surrounding people saw Wang Xian's direct and indifferent rejection, they were shocked. They whispered in disbelief. Such a monstrous heaven's favorite. If he were to say that he wanted to find a master, there would definitely be a 4th or 5th level void interpretation stage powerhouse who would be willing to take him in as a disciple. Who would reject such a disciple with unlimited potential? However, Wang Xian would reject it without even the slightest hesitation. He would not accept Ren Xingqian as his disciple, nor would he let him be a slave. He was merely a disciple at the 9th level of the Transcendence realm. So what if he was a dual-attributed genius? To accept such a disciple, and still have to be responsible for him, it would only cause more trouble. He did not even bring Ao Yao with him this time around. How could he accept a burden? To him, a peerless heaven's favorite with dual attributes was merely so. At the very least, Ao Yao could instantly kill Ren Xingqian. Even if Ren Xingqian became a powerhouse in the future, Ao Yao would still be able to kill him instantly. Master, I beg you. Ren Xingqian gritted his teeth when he heard his rejection. He kowtowed heavily once again. All right, since you said that I won't take you in as my disciple, I won't take you in. It's just that we are fated to be together. Wang Xian raised his eyebrows and said coldly. He turned around and walked straight to the edge of the tomb of the demi-human. A man should strengthen himself. Strength is the foundation. I can save you twice, but it's impossible for me to save you 3 times. As Wang Xian walked, he relaxed his eyebrows and reminded him lightly. After that, his figure flashed and he flew out quickly. A man should be strong. Ren Xingqian's face was filled with disappointment when he saw Wang Xian leaving. However, a determined look appeared on his face soon after. He raised his head abruptly and shouted with determination. Senior, can you leave a name for me? Where can I find you? When I become stronger, when I become a strong person, I want to find you. We are fated to meet, but not fated to meet. However, Wang Xian's answer was bound to disappoint him. A dispirited look appeared on his face. His eyes flickered as he looked at Wang Xian's figure until he disappeared. Even such a proud son of heaven doesn't know. This mysterious person is really arrogant. I'm afraid he is also a strong person with dual attributes. Otherwise, he wouldn't be able to fight against 2 people by himself and kill all of them. In the surroundings, an old man at the 1st level of the profound void tier muttered. He looked at Ren Xingqian, wishing that he could take him in as a disciple. Unfortunately, he didn't have the qualifications. Clang! Right at this moment, the sound of a sword rang out from the center. Everyone was slightly stunned and hurriedly looked over. Their faces slowly revealed a stunned expression. They saw Ren Xingqian, who was holding a large sword in his hand, slowly stand up. His gaze was filled with determination and fighting spirit. He stared at Zhou Yanmei and walked over step by step with determination. What is he trying to do? When the surrounding people saw this scene, their faces revealed a shocked expression. Zhou Yanmei's expression also changed slightly. When she saw Ren Xingqian walking over, she could not help but take 2 steps back. She squeezed out a smile on her face. Congratulations. I knew that you would be able to survive. Zhou Yanmei's expression was extremely ugly as she said this. Although Senior did not take me as his disciple, I will remember his words in my heart. A man should strengthen himself. Only strength is the foundation. Only strength. If others provoke me, Ren Xingqian, I can kill them. If you don't have strength, then you have to strengthen yourself and make yourself stronger. Ren Xingqian walked towards him, step by step, his face full of determination. What do you want to do? Zhou Yanmei looked at his determined eyes. Her eyes filled with panic as she asked hesitantly. I'll kill you. Ren Xingqian did not hide anything. He raised the large sword in his hand and directly attacked her. He directly released his strongest attack, the piercing golden sword. No, don't. Zhou Yanmei's face revealed a terrified expression, wanting to flee into the distance. Even the old woman beside him had a shocked expression. The old woman's strength was only at the 9th rank of the Ascended Realm, facing a peerless genius that could kill a half-step void interpretation realm expert. She didn't have the strength to resist. Ah! A scream ended Zhou Yanmei's life. Ren Xingqian didn't hesitate and flew into the distance. He wanted to leave this place and find a place to become stronger. His dual attributes. He is truly a peerless genius. This Ren Xingqian is simply too powerful. He has the strength to kill a half-step void interpretation expert at the level of Transcendent Level 9. That sword technique is too powerful. He is simply the king of sword cultivators, the Sword King. He can't be called the Sword King yet. It is not an exaggeration to call the mysterious youth who exterminated the Meng clan the Sword King. His strength is so terrifying. I can take up the title of Little Sword King. However, I feel that the mysterious expert should be called the Sword Demon. Oh my God, with a wave of his long sword, black gas filled the air. The terrifying and deep black space killed more than 200 people in one move. 2 experts at the first level of the void interpretation realm. The name of the Sword Demon lives up to its name. Little Sword King Ren Xingqian. The mysterious Sword Demon was able to slash the void interpretation realm. When Ren Xingqian and Wang Xian left the surroundings, the people around the Sword Mansion began to discuss among themselves. Ren Xingqian, who had both metal and water attributes, was known as the Little Sword King for his ability to kill people of a higher level than him. The mysterious young man should not be very old either. He killed more than 200 people in a single battle, and was known as the Sword Demon. The appearance of 2 such freakish people would definitely cause a stir in the human demon graveyard in the next few days. Chapter 12:17, Saving Ling Jian'er. Wang Xian walked in the air. His strength had increased so much that he was no longer sprinting on land like before. With his current strength, he could kill a powerhouse at the first level of the see-through realm in his human form. If he were to transform into a divine dragon, his strength would increase again. According to his estimation, although he could not defeat a powerhouse at the second level of the see-through realm in his divine dragon form, he would definitely be able to escape from the hands of a powerhouse at the second level of the see-through realm. However, what he did not know was that after he left, he had another name. The mysterious man, the Sword Demon. Even if he knew, Wang Xian could only smile. He could not walk the path of swordsmanship. The sword was just to display the offensive techniques of the Golden Water Sword principle. When Wang Xian had completely integrated the combined attacks of his attributes, he would be able to display all the attacks of the Golden Water Sword principle without using his sword. He was not a pure swordsman. Wang Xian flew quickly to where he was staying and arrived at the pine and poplar forest in less than an hour. Awa! When he opened the door, the cry of the spirit purple Qilin could be heard from inside. It stood up and walked over with its huge body. It was obvious that it had not seen Wang Xian for a month, and even missed him. Wang Xian rubbed its head and took out the corpses of a few ferocious beasts from his interspatial ring. Awa! It let out an excited cry and swallowed it directly. After all, it had not eaten for a month. I've found a few playmates for you. As Wang Xian spoke, he moved his Naling bag, and 5 little golden monkeys came out from it. The demonic beast cub, the little yin monkey, was obtained from the Black Cloud Fort. However, other than the little yin monkey, there were a few other living creatures that came out from within. It was a tortoise with a blood-red shell. It had a blood-red head and looked extremely ferocious. It was a void interpretation first-level dire beast, the blood fiend tortoise. It had a 3-meter-long body, and its shell was filled with sharp spikes. When this tortoise came out, 6 more tortoises came out. However, this time, it was not the blood fiend tortoise, but the blood-traced tortoise. The blood-traced turtle was a ferocious beast 2 levels lower than the blood-traced turtle. The strength of the 6 turtles was only at transcendent level 9. Wang Xian obtained these turtles from the blood spirit cave. This was also because he had stayed in the blood spirit cave for a few hours. The owner of the blood spirit cave had obviously kept many ferocious beasts and pets. All of them were corpses. Only a few turtles with relatively strong vitality survived. Wang Xian spent some time to subdue all of them. Don't leave this courtyard. Wang Xian ordered the group of ferocious beasts and walked into the room. Apart from the blood evil turtle and the spirit purple unicorn, Wang Xian was prepared to sell all of these ferocious beasts. Especially the 5 little yin monkeys. They would definitely fetch a good price. Let's tidy up our harvest. Wang Xian walked into the room and took out the interspatial rings of the Meng clan's people. He checked the treasures inside. TSK. My harvest this time should be close to 2 trillion middle-grade spiritual stones, right? Wang Xian's face was filled with excitement. The spiritual liquid, elixirs and spiritual herbs only took up a portion. For example, weapons, armor, formations, demonic beast cubs, ferocious beast pets, pet eggs, and 2 half-step void interpretation ferocious beast bloodlines. There were almost all kinds of things. In addition to the items he obtained from over 200 people of the Meng clan, all of them were above transcendent level 6. He could have whatever he wanted. I'll first consume these spiritual herbs, pills, and spiritual liquid. Wang Xian sorted out all the items one by one and looked at the items that could directly increase his dragon energy. Without any hesitation, he consumed them directly and transformed them into dragon energy. The dragon energy that was difficult to increase was increasing at a terrifying speed. Name: Wang Xian. Race: 5 elemental divine dragon, able to transform into a human. Level: extraordinary 8th level. Dragon crystal: 30176400/10000000. Supernatural ability: ruling the water tribe. Ruling the water tribe that is lower than one's own level. Devouring creatures to extract dragon crystals. Control of the 5 elements. Cultivation method: divine dragon transformation. Supernatural ability: fire dragon's flame, gold splits the void, descent of the wood world, water crisis city, fury of the earth, soul capture, spirit possession. Light and dark fire dragon eyes, light and dark void, light and dark shadowless, earth dragon shield, light and dark, divine dragon's fire tail, water spirit, fire territory, water and wood healing. Dragon Palace, level 3. Dragon Palace members, 3,395. Close to 30 million, an increase of 30 million dragon crystals. After Wang Xian swallowed all the spiritual herbs, pills, and spiritual liquid, together with the energy he obtained from Long Xiaotian, the amount of energy he needed to level up had reached 1/3. Selling the remaining resources will definitely increase my level. Wang Xian grinned. There were the most materials for crafting, and many of them were at the void interpretation level. Other than that, there were weapons and armors that had been crafted. There were 7 to 8 formations that were obtained from the sword mansion. The highest grade formation was the sword formation at the 2nd level of the insightful void tier. It was extremely powerful. Other than refining the materials into weapons and armors, I have to think of a way to get rid of all these items. Wang Xian was deep in thought. He couldn't buy them from Long Xiaotian, but he should be able to help sell them. However, he hesitated for a moment before shaking his head. There were too many items and the value was too high. It might take a long time for him to help deal with them. Is there an auction house here? Should I go and take a look? Wang Xian thought about it. He only went to the hiring association once, and didn't take a good look at the surroundings of the hiring association. It seemed that he would have to stroll around here, and find a way to convert the resources into his own strength, as soon as possible. Let's rest for a while first. However, Wang Xian didn't go out immediately. He hadn't rested for more than a month, and was lying comfortably in his room. Roar, roar, roar. Wang Xian didn't know how long he had slept. He felt that he had slept for at least more than 10 hours. A roar came from outside and woke him up. He frowned slightly, put on his clothes, and walked into the courtyard. The moment he came out, he saw Ling Zilin, Blood Evil Turtle, and the rest of the demonic beasts staring fiercely at Xiaoha, who was standing on the wall. Roar! 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 This Xiaoha cried out with a pitiful face full of anxiety. When it saw Wang Xian coming out, it suddenly shrunk its head and cried out immediately. Save me! The human voice that came out of his mouth surprised Wang Xian slightly. He waved his hand and ordered Ling Zilin and the rest to stop shouting. He stared at Xiaoha and asked directly, "What did you say? Save Jian or chirp chirp chirp?" Xiaoha stood on the wall and cried out anxiously. However, as he was a cub, he didn't know many languages. As he spoke, he was anxious. He extended his hand and pointed to the other side of the wall. Are you asking me to go with you? Wang Xian looked at the anxious little fellow curiously and asked with a look of surprise on his face. Oh, Xiaoha nodded his head vigorously and gestured once again. All right, I'll go over. Wang Xian hesitated for a moment before nodding his head. He flew straight to the wall. Xiaoha turned his head and brought him to a courtyard at the side. Huh? When Wang Xian came to the wall of another courtyard, he saw a woman lying in the courtyard. Chapter 12:18. He was the sword demon. It seems to be the lady called Ling Jian. Wang Xian looked at the lady, who was lying on the ground with a look of surprise on his face. Awoo. Seeing that Wang Xian was standing there motionlessly, Xiaoha bit on Wang Xian's pants and tugged anxiously. Why is she lying here? It shouldn't be. Wang Xian looked at Xiaoha and flew to the lady's side. Huh? Wang Xian sensed her life force and frowned slightly. Her aura was weak and she could die at any time. Water and wood healing. Wang Xian did not hesitate at all. The dual attribute healing spell landed on her body. A terrifying life force entered Ling Jianyar's body. The majestic life force caused her body to move. Her eyelashes trembled slightly. It had to be said that Ling Jianyar was very beautiful. At least in Wang Xian's eyes. She wasn't any worse than Xu Qing and the rest. However, she wasn't any better than Xu Qing and the rest either. Therefore, Wang Xian didn't have the slightest fluctuation when faced with such an ordinary beauty. Ling Jianyar woke up. Her face gradually regained its rosy color. She was slightly stunned when she saw Wang Xian. Oh! At this moment, Xiaoha jumped in front of Ling Jianyar's face excitedly and licked it. Ling Jianyar's heart was slightly enlightened. She looked at Wang Xian and said coldly, "Thank you." No need. Wang Xian stood there and shook his head. He didn't leave immediately. At this moment, Wang Xian and Ling Jianyar's face suddenly changed drastically. Their ruddy face quickly turned pale. She frowned and touched the spot on her chest. Her expression changed slightly. It's poison, heavenly antidote flower poison. Ling Jianyar's expression darkened. She shook her lips tightly, and her body started to tremble slightly. However, her expression quickly calmed down. Wang Xian looked at her in astonishment. Ling Jianyar was poisoned. It was a lethal poison. She had merely used her strong vitality to recover from it. The poison had not been removed at all. It was obvious that she had also realized that she was poisoned. However, she did not react at all. Her aura gave him an ashen look, as if she had accepted the fact that she was dead. I can save you. Wang Xian had wanted to wait for her to speak first. However, he had no choice but to speak. You can save me? I have been poisoned by the heavenly antidote flower poison. Even if a powerhouse at the first level of the see-through realm was poisoned, he would still die. There is no antidote at all. A faint desire to live flashed across Ling Jianyar's eyes. She raised her head and looked at him. 10,000 spiritual liquid, Wang Xian said faintly. Ling Jian was slightly stunned when she heard her words. It was obvious that she was stunned by her words. Is it too much? Wang Xian saw her expression and frowned slightly. 9,000 is fine. If it's really not possible, 8,000 it is. Ling Jian was even more stunned when she heard her words. This was the first time she had seen someone speak to her in such a manner. To be able to raise a pup of a demonic beast with a level 2 void interpretation bloodline, and use a level 2 void interpretation weapon, you shouldn't be unable to even take out 8,000 spiritual liquid, right? It can't be any less. If you don't have it, give me the weapon in your hand. Wang Xian frowned and said to her, I have 10,000 spiritual liquid. Hero. The pain in her body made her react. She quickly said as she felt a pain in her chest. She couldn't help but spit out blood, and immediately took out 10,000 spiritual liquid from her interspatial ring. She is indeed a rich woman. When Wang Xian saw the spiritual liquid, a hint of a smile flashed in his eyes. He moved his arm and placed it directly on her shoulder. Ling Jianyar's body trembled. She couldn't help but widen her eyes slowly. The consumption is too great. Phew, alright, I'm leaving. In just a dozen seconds, Wang Xian retracted his arm. His body, which was full of smiles, moved and disappeared. He returned to his own courtyard. Ling Jian was in a daze as she sensed her body. Her face was filled with disbelief. He really cured the heavenly antidote flower poison. This, her eyes flickered as she looked at her interspatial ring. Her breathing was slightly hurried. In order to obtain the item in the interspatial ring, she was willing to risk her life. If it wasn't for the person who suddenly appeared, she would definitely die. Even if I obtain this treasure and become a peerless expert, what can I do? Defeat him? A bitter expression appeared on her face. Ao. Xiaoha's cry came from beside her. Ling Jianer smiled and carried him. Thank you, Xiaoha. She stood up slowly and carried Xiaoha. Ao. Xiaoha raised his head proudly. Then, he extended his claw and pointed in the direction of Wang Xian's courtyard. Ling Jianyar followed the direction of its paw and muttered, What a strange fellow. Awoo. Suddenly, Xiaoha let out a weak cry, causing Ling Jianer to be slightly stunned. He wah. Xiaoha looked at Ling Jianer and spat out a word. Then, it began to gesture with its paw and opened its mouth wide. Are you saying that he is very strong? Ling Jianer looked at it and asked with a smile. Owa wah. Ow. Little Ha nodded its head heavily and began to gesture again. At the last moment, at the spot between its eyebrows, where the white face was, another eye opened. Ling Jian was slightly stunned and opened her mouth slightly. You mean he's that sword devil? Ao. Xiaoha nodded heavily once again. Ling Jian looked at the courtyard not far away from her, her eyes filled with astonishment. He was actually the sword demon. The sword expert who had killed 2 insightful Void Realm experts yesterday, the sword demon. Having witnessed his strength with her own eyes, even she was incomparably impressed. However, such a powerful sword demon was actually such a young man. How was this possible? However, Xiaoha had a third eye and a terrifying sense of smell. There was no way she would make a mistake. I really didn't expect such a greedy guy to be that cold-blooded sword demon. Ling Jian recalled the scene of Wang Xian saving her and asking for the spiritual liquid. She couldn't believe that sword demon was such a person. Haha, saving a person cost less than 1,000 dragon crystals and earned 9,000 spiritual liquid. Wang Xian returned to the courtyard and couldn't help but laugh. It would be great if I could meet more people like this. Wang Xian thought with a smile. He didn't want to wait for that lady to die before he could obtain her treasures. There was a way for a gentleman to take what he liked. Of course, if someone had ulterior motives, Wang Xian would not only take his wealth, but also let the dragon pool absorb his corpse. Wang Xian, who was in a good mood, beckoned to Ling Zilin and the rest of the demonic beasts before flying towards the center of the city. He wanted to see if there was any place where he could sell the resources he had as soon as possible. When he arrived at the center of the hiring association, Wang Xian scanned his surroundings. After hesitating for a moment, he walked towards the Holy Item Forging Workshop. He wanted to see the price of weapons recycled by the Holy Relic Forging Workshop. Chapter 12:19, Dragon and Phoenix Grocery Store. 70%? Only 70% of the market price? Wang Xian entered the Holy Item Forging Workshop and asked the staff inside with a frown. Of course. You still want to recycle at the market price? How is that possible? The staff replied to him with a slight sneer. Wang Xian raised his eyebrows and walked straight out. He walked on the bustling road and looked around. Wang Xian would naturally not sell all kinds of weapons and armors to them at 70% of the market price. He had so many weapons in his hands. It was a complete loss to sell them to the Holy Item Forging Workshop. Let's see if there's an auction house. If it's an auction house, it would be a quick way. Wang Xian looked around. After walking for a short while, he saw an extremely glorious auction house, the Blood Emperor Auction House. This Blood Emperor Auction House seems to be set up by the Blood Flow Empire. Wang Xian walked over immediately. However, what made him feel helpless was that the Blood Emperor Auction House was held once a month. It was only held for 2 days this month. If he wanted to auction items, he would have to wait until the following month. No, 1 month is too long. Wang Xian shook his head and continued to look around. There were all kinds of shops. They were densely packed with elixirs, weapons, pets, mounts, formations, spiritual meat. There were thousands of different shops in the central area. There were big ones and small ones. I took a look at 2 more auction houses, but the scale of the auction house was too small. Wang Xian had too many things. He didn't dare to entrust such a small auction house to conduct an auction. This made him frown. Hold an auction on my own. Get Long Xiaotian over to oversee the auction to prevent people from directly snatching it. He pondered in his heart, but he quickly ruled it out. There were too many things involved. Publicity was one aspect. Moreover, if an auction was to be held, there had to be a strong person overseeing it. Long Xiaotian was in the assessment period. During this period, the power of the Light Dragon dynasty was forbidden to be used. With only the title of a prince, it was obvious that he could not suppress the other factions. Another important point was that if he were to get close to Long Xiaotian, he reckoned that the other factions would not need to do anything. The other princes of the Light Dragon Empire would come to rob this auction. Creak. The sound of the door closing came from the side. An old man walked out and pasted a note on the door. He shook his head and left. Wang Xian took a glance and stopped. He looked deep in thought. Open my own shop. His eyes flickered. He still had a lot of metal materials that he needed to refine into weapons. Those materials would take at least 5 to 6 days to be refined. Why don't I open my own shop and get Long Xiaotian to help recruit people to advertise it? I can refine weapons on my own and sell things normally. If my reputation starts to spread, the items in the shop should be sold out very quickly. Wang Xian's eyes sparkled as he pondered for a while. This method was really feasible. Since he could sell it at a high price, it wouldn't take long for him to refine weapons and armor in the shop. He made a decision in his heart and began to search for a suitable shop in the entire area. The location of the shop was not bad, but the shop was too small. Wang Xian's shop was a grocery store. There were all kinds of miscellaneous items, and even demonic beasts and ferocious beasts for sale. Naturally, he had to find a bigger shop. After searching for a while, Wang Xian identified a shop that was on sale. It was big enough and had 3 floors. It used to be a weapons shop, but now it was closed. Wang Xian immediately contacted the owner and bought it for 50 million middle-grade spirit stones. 50 million middle-grade spirit stones was definitely a very high price. However, this was the tomb of a demi-human. If one wanted to open a shop in the tomb of a demi-human and owned a shop, the price would naturally be hundreds of times higher than the price outside. After buying it, Wang Xian immediately flew towards his residence. He needed to make some preparations. He was going to contact Long Xiaotian and bring some people to patronize the shop. He was going to set up the shop. Bang! When Wang Xian pushed open the door of the courtyard, he looked into the courtyard in slight astonishment. Roar! Roar! In the courtyard, Xiaoha was standing on the body of a level 9 see-through blood-traced turtle. He was chirping with the 5 little yin monkeys. At the side, Ling Zilin and the blood-evil turtle were lying on the ground. They did not pay any attention to Xiaoha. When it saw Wang Xian enter, it shrunk its head and threw something at him. This is... Wang Xian was stunned when he saw the blood-red item that contained energy being thrown at him. Blood essence. 700 dragon crystals can be extracted from dragon energy. Blood essence, is this the blood essence? Wang Xian immediately took it and examined it carefully. Blood essence was similar to the spiritual liquid. It was 2 items that were produced in the human demon graveyard. The spiritual liquid was very useful to humans. Blood essence was very useful to demonic beasts and people with bloodlines. No wonder the spirit purple Kylan blood evil turtle didn't chase it out. It turned out that it bribed the treasure and even got along with a few demonic beasts. Wang Xian revealed a smile and kept the blood essence. He looked at Xiaoha and his body trembled slightly. A wave of kindness was transmitted directly into Xiaoha's mind. Xiaoha was slightly stunned. He looked at Wang Xian slowly with a gaze filled with friendliness. That Ling Jian is really careless. She let a cub with the bloodline of a second-level void interpretation stage demon beast go so easily. If I have any thoughts, I can subdue it directly. Wang Xian thought to himself. Roar! Roar! At this moment, Xiaoha flew towards Wang Xian and stood on his shoulder intimately. Wang Xian stroked its head and sat on the chair beside it. He poured himself a cup of tea and sent a message to Long Xiaotian. He gave a brief explanation and asked him to help promote his shop when it opened. After sending the message, Wang Xian took out a piece of metal material and prepared to make a signboard. The signboard didn't need to be too good, but it couldn't be too bad either. It was made of metal material of extraordinary level 8. Let's call the shop Dragon and Phoenix Grocery Store. The items sold are pretty miscellaneous anyway. Wang Xian thought to himself as he carved the words Dragon and Phoenix Grocery Store on the metal material. Xiaoha, Xiaoha, come back. Not long after, Ling Jianyar's cold voice came from outside the courtyard. Roar! Roar! Xiaoha lay on its shoulder and roared towards the direction outside. Ha! Xiaoha, come over. Ling Jianyar's figure was suspended in the air. She looked at Xiaoha, who was lying beside Wang Xian, with a surprised expression. Wasn't Xiaoha a little afraid of him? Why did he look so intimate now? Why didn't he come over even if she called him? In the past, she would have come over as long as she called Xiaoha softly. Oh, Xiaoha looked at Wang Xian with a face full of reluctance and rubbed his head against him. Chapter 1220, Dragon and Phoenix Grocery Store 2. Ling Jian was even more astonished when she saw Xiaoha rubbing her head against Wang Xian's body reluctantly. A hint of displeasure appeared on her face. After all, Xiaoha was her pet and her most intimate little guy. Xiaoha, come over quickly. Ling Jian shouted again with an unhappy expression. Awa! Xiaoha shouted and ran towards Ling Jianyar. Humph! Seeing it running over, Ling Jian pinched its face with displeasure. She looked at Wang Xian curiously and asked with a straight face, Why is Xiaoha so close to you? Wang Xian raised his head and looked at Ling Jian. He smiled faintly and said, Because I am a beast tamer. If I want to, I can even make your pet obey my orders. You. Ling Jianyar's expression changed slightly when she heard his words. She frowned and glared at Wang Xian. Don't use your beast taming skills on Xiaoha. Otherwise, don't blame me for being impolite. I'm your savior. Moreover, do you think you're my opponent? Wang Xian smiled nonchalantly when he heard her words. Roar! Roar, roar! Chirp, chirp! Just as Wang Xian finished his sentence, the group of ferocious beasts and demonic beasts in the courtyard started to chirp and looked at her. Ling Jian felt waves of aura, and her expression changed slightly. Her gaze swept across the group of ferocious beasts and demonic beasts. Compared to the last time, there were many more ferocious beasts and demonic beasts. This was especially so for the 3-meter-long bloody evil turtle that was filled with a bloody evil aura. It's at the void interpretation level again. Her pupils constricted. Awoo. Xiao Ha, who was on her shoulder, instead barked at the group of demonic beasts. GGGG. A few little yin monkeys jumped to the bottom of the wall and barked at Xiao Ha. Their golden eyes stared at it. Little yin monkeys with half-step void interpretation bloodline. She looked at these monkeys and was slightly surprised. When she looked at the demonic beasts and ferocious beasts in the courtyard, her eyes suddenly lit up. She stared at the 1-meter-sized small tree beside Wang Xian. The small tree was 1-meter-sized and had golden leaves. The entire small tree emitted a strong metal attribute. It emitted a golden glow and covered an area of 2 to 3 meters. Golden lotus tree. It's actually a golden lotus tree. Her eyes flickered as she recalled the precious inheritance she had obtained. Are you selling that golden lotus tree of yours? She hesitated for a moment before asking Wang Xian. Come in and tell me if you have something to say. Don't stand on the wall of my house. If you don't know, I would think that you're a thief. Wang Xian glanced at her and said indifferently. Ling Jianyar's expression changed slightly. She moved and landed coldly in the courtyard. She stared at the golden lotus tree and asked, Are you selling it? Yes, I'm selling everything in the entire courtyard, except for the spiritual Zilin and the blood evil turtle. Wang Xian looked at her and gestured to the chair at the side. Ling Jian stood there without moving. How much spiritual liquid? Name a price. I haven't thought about it yet. When my grocery store is open for business, I'll list the price then. Wang Xian smiled. Looking at the signboard that he had made, a satisfied expression appeared on his face. Grocery store. Ling Jian looked at him in confusion. Yes, grocery store. It's my store. I need to make some arrangements now. If you want to buy it, you can go to my store tomorrow. There might be things you need in there. Wang Xian stood up and said to her directly, Where is your grocery store? Ling Jian quickly asked. I can't really describe the exact location. It's the first day of business tomorrow. I need to go and arrange it now. Wang Xian thought for a moment and shook his head. He kept the signboard and some metal materials into his space. Keep the golden lotus tree for me. I'll go and buy it tomorrow. Ling Jian said to Wang Xian. Sure. Wang Xian nodded his head. Okay. She took a glance at Wang Xian and flew back to her own place. Hee. A golden lotus tree at the first level of the void interpretation realm can be sold at a good price. This girl is a rich lady. Wang Xian watched her disappear and revealed a smile on his face. He put away all the items and placed the group of demonic beasts into his storage spiritual bag. Then, he flew directly to the shop. When he arrived at the shop, there were a lot of people around him even at night. Wang Xian looked at the shop's door and waved his arm. He placed the brand of the Dragon and Phoenix grocery store on it. His shop was not eye-catching. It was even more insignificant when placed in the middle of the bustling human cemetery. The words grocery store seemed to be of a lower class as well. Wang Xian did not pay much attention to it and walked straight into the shop. The entire shop was extremely clean and tidy. For an expert, all he needed to do was to use a little energy to clean up all the dirt. Set up a beast pen here to sell pets. Sell weapons here, armor here, hidden weapons here, and so on. As for the formation here, there are also a few pet eggs. Wang Xian sorted out the items one by one. On the second floor, he sold items of the insightful void tier. When Wang Xian displayed the items in his interspatial ring one by one, the entire shop became even more chaotic. A few demonic beasts and ferocious beasts were shouting. Weapons, spears, clubs, and weapons were hanging haphazardly. Forget it, let's just leave it at that. I still have a lot of metal materials in my hands. I'll forge some weapons and armor sets. Wang Xian took a look around and walked to the back. He placed the blood-evil turtle and the spirit-purple qilin in the storage spiritual bag at the back and treated them as divine beasts. If someone came to cause trouble, he could just let the two of them go. Wang Xian thought about it and came to the third floor. The third floor was a place that he specially used to forge weapons and armor. He took out the materials one by one and started to forge them immediately. The night passed quickly. The sky was bright. Wang Xian took a look at the weapons, armor and battle boots that he had crafted. He took them downstairs and placed them on the floor. Open for business. He revealed a faint smile and opened the door of the shop. Senior brother Yin, look, it's him, it's that guy. When Wang Xian opened the door of the shop, a young man pointed at Wang Xian at a spot not far from the street. He quickly said to Yin Xianfeng, who was beside him, I've been looking for this fellow for half a month. I've finally found him. I've finally found him. Yin Xianfeng turned his head and looked over. His eyes were filled with killing intent as he clenched his fists tightly. His severed arm had already recovered. His eyes were filled with hatred and killing intent. Senior brother Yin, don't be rash. His strength. His strength. The young man beside Yin Xianfeng hurriedly reminded him. They knew very well that the other party's strength was not something they could provoke. I know. Yin Xianfeng calmed down slightly. He looked at the shop and slowly opened his mouth. Back then you crippled my arm and embarrassed me. In order to take revenge, I sacrificed a lot. Next, I will let you know the consequences of provoking me. His eyes flickered with a cold light as he flew directly towards the island of the Light Dragon Dynasty. Chapter 1221, Dragon and Phoenix Grocery Store 3. Wang Xian, who opened the door, didn't notice that there was someone outside who had been looking for him for a long time. He took a look at the store and sat on a chair. He poured himself a cup of tea and sat there leisurely, waiting for customers to arrive. It was estimated that Long Xiaotian would bring some people to support the store before long. When the time came, business would naturally arrive. Young Royal Highness, this should be a newly opened shop. They didn't pay us the safety management fee. On the left of the Dragon and Phoenix grocery store, there were two shops that weren't very big. However, the third shop was much bigger. It was at least 10 times the size of Wang Xian's shop. It had a total of more than 10 floors. This was a restaurant with the words Organ Restaurant written on it. To be able to open a shop here with such a large area, the background of the shop was definitely not simple. Otherwise, the shop would have been torn down long ago. The force behind the Organ Restaurant was the Nine-Star Dynasty. The Nine-Star Dynasty was a dynasty that was not considered to be very strong. However, it was a dynasty after all, and its strength could not be underestimated. At the entrance of the Organ Restaurant, an old man stood beside a young man and whispered to him. There were 2 men and 3 women around the young man. How many shops near our restaurant are under our control? The young man was very fat and weighed at least 200 kilograms. He glanced around and asked impatiently, Young Prince, the 20 shops around our restaurant are all within our range. They must pay a safety fee for opening a shop here. Each shop has 5 spirit liquids a month. The old man reported from beside him. What? Only 5 spirit liquids? 20 shops only have 100 spirit liquids every month. That's so little? The fat youth frowned and said with a displeased expression. His expression was very unpleasant. Young Royal Highness, 5 spirit liquids is over 1 million middle-grade spirit stones. That's not a small amount. A hint of speechlessness flashed through the old man's eyes. No wonder this young Royal Highness was sent here. FUCK, I thought there would be a lot of spirit liquid. Let's make it 5. Let's go over. If that guy doesn't take the initiative to pay the management fee, we'll directly double the penalty. If he dares to not pay, we'll tear down his shop. The fat young man revealed an unhappy expression and directly walked forward. Young Prince, the few of us aren't here to accompany you to collect rent. Quickly settle the matters here. A young man next to him said with a smile. All right. Let me familiarize myself with the matters here first. The fat young man looked at the few people next to him and waved his hand. The other few people behind him smiled. Grocery store? This, young prince. A store that sells groceries. What kind of spirit liquid can you receive? A woman looked at the store in front of her with a funny expression. Looks like it's another poor guy. Last time, this shop sold the meat of ferocious beasts and demonic beasts. It only lasted for a month before it closed down. The old man beside him took a look and frowned slightly. No matter what he sells, he has to hand over the safety management fee to me. The fat young man had a fierce expression on his face as he walked into the shop aggressively. Wang Xian, who was sitting in the shop, was drinking tea with one hand while the 5 attributes of metal, wood, water, fire, and earth were dancing on his fingers with the other hand. When there were no customers, Wang Xian could practice his attribute combination combat techniques. There are customers already? Wang Xian smiled when he saw 7 people walking in from the door. What do you want to buy? Wang Xian asked faintly with a smile on his face. What do I want to buy? Don't you know that you have to pay a safety fee for opening a new shop? Just as Wang Xian finished his sentence, the plump young man who walked in aggressively raised his head and shouted coldly. Safety fee? Wang Xian was slightly taken aback. He glanced at the few people who came with ill intentions and narrowed his eyes slightly. What is a safety fee? You are the owner of this shop, right? The safety fee is just that. You open a shop here, and our organ restaurant will guarantee your safety. You know the rules here as well. If you don't have the ability, open a shop? It's normal to be robbed by others. If you pay the safety fee, you will be protected by our accordion restaurant. The old man beside the fat young man stared at Wang Xian and said faintly, Hee, I don't need your protection. If you are not here to buy things, I'll have to trouble you to get out. Wang Xian looked at them with a hint of mockery and said directly, Huh? The old man's face turned cold when he heard Wang Xian's words. He narrowed his eyes and sized him up carefully. Are you sure? Don't regret it when the time comes. If you don't have the strength, you will have to pay a heavy price to open a shop in the tomb of the demi-human. He stared at Wang Xian with a cold expression. A cold aura emanated from his body as he charged at Wang Xian without any concealment. Why are you wasting your breath on him? If he doesn't hand over the safety fee, just cripple him. The fat young man said impatiently. Roar. GG. However, their roars and the aura that emanated from their bodies caused a few ferocious beasts in the beast pen to let out a low roar. They looked at the group of people at the door and roared. What kind of beast is this? The roars of the little yin monkey and the blood-traced turtle instantly attracted the attention of the group. When they looked over, they were slightly stunned. That golden little monkey is so beautiful. It seems to be a little yin monkey with the bloodline of a half-step void interpretation demon beast. There are actually five little yin monkeys. A girl looked at the 5 little yin monkeys with a surprised expression and sized them up with love. It's a half-step void interpretation demonic beast cub. The old man was slightly stunned, and his face was full of astonishment. The fat young man was also surprised. A seemingly low-class grocery store actually had such a treasure. They looked into the store and looked at it seriously. Weapons, armor, and even sets. Pet eggs, demon beasts, fierce beasts, array compasses, and many other strange treasures. Each item was emitting a strong energy. At least all of them were transcendent level 8 items. This made them look shocked. There were 500 to 600 items like weapons and armor, and even the lowest price weapons cost 10 drops of spirit liquid. As for the young demonic beast, it was worth at least 10 billion middle-grade spiritual stones. This small shop sold a variety of items, but the value was beyond imagination. I didn't expect the items sold to be so precious. That's perfect. Take a young demonic beast as your safety fee for this month. The eyes of the fat young man flickered. He opened his mouth and spoke like a lion. He looked at the items around him with a hint of greed in his eyes. Didn't you hear what I just said? Scram. Wang Xian saw the greedy eyes of the few of them, and a look of disdain appeared in his eyes. Chapter 12:22. Dragon and Phoenix grocery store for. A cold voice came out of his mouth, causing the faces of the fat young man and the rest to turn cold instantly. Kid, this is our organ restaurant, in the territory of our 9 Stars dynasty. If you don't pay the safety fee, you can forget about opening this store. In fact, you might even be robbed. The old man beside the fat young man stared at Wuxia coldly and threatened him faintly. Why are you still talking nonsense with him? How dare he act so arrogantly in our shop? Tear down his entire shop. The fat young man stared at Wuxia ferociously and shouted loudly. Haha, I agree with this. Since they don't give face to the organ restaurant, then tear it down this time. The thing's here. A young man beside him laughed out loud and squinted his eyes in agreement. A greedy look appeared in his eyes. This is the shop that I bought. Do I still need to pay a safety fee like you guys? I finally understand that you guys are a bunch of self-righteous bandits. Wuxia stood up slowly. A faint killing intent surged from his body. The 9 Stars dynasty? Hee hee. Since you guys don't want to get lost, I can only send you guys away. As he spoke, 2 terrifying elemental energies condensed in his palms. You brought this upon yourself. When the old man saw the energy in Wuxia's hands, a killing intent surged from his body. A large saber appeared in his hands. Kill him. The fat young man's face, which was filled with muscles, appeared a little ferocious. He growled at the old man beside him. HMPH, you're courting death. The energy in Wuxia's hands didn't hesitate at all. The combined combat technique Jin Lu was sent straight at the old man. Slash. The old man's saber glow was amplified as he slashed directly at Jin Lu. Not good. However, when the saber in his hand landed on Jin Lu, the level 9 extraordinary saber in the old man's hand actually broke apart. This caused him to be filled with extreme fear. Retreat, little prince, retreat immediately. Without any hesitation, his body trembled as a circular energy armor floated around him. The first tier profound void tier armor that he had spent half his life savings on exploded. He pulled the fat young man's body and directly fled outside. The other 5 young men and women were slightly stunned. Shock appeared on their faces, and they fled outside in fear. The old man was the shopkeeper of the organ restaurant. He had the strength of a half-step profound void tier expert. However, he knew that he was no match for the other party with just 1 strike. One could imagine that the young man's strength was not something that they could deal with. Wuxia saw that they had escaped from the shop. He frowned slightly and did not chase after them. He waved his arm, and the golden flow dissipated immediately. In the shop, he did not dare to release too much strength. Otherwise, the entire shop would not be able to withstand it. I hope that all of you know your limits. If you still dare to come, don't blame me for being impolite. A cold glint flashed across Wuxia's eyes as he looked at the spirit purple Qilin and the blood evil turtle behind him. Ziling blood evil lie on the left and right side of the door. If anyone dares to cause trouble, kill them immediately. Wuxia ordered the 2 beasts that were lying in the innermost part of the door. Roar, roar. The 2 beasts let out a low roar and immediately came to the 2 sides of the door. As long as they entered the door, they would be able to see the 2 big fellows standing on both sides. If there were any troublemakers, they would have to go through the Ling Zilin and the vicious turtle first. This tomb of the humans and demons is really chaotic. Wuxia sighed slightly. It was extremely chaotic in the battlefield of the tomb of the humans and demons. It was also extremely chaotic in the place where the humans gathered. There was no order to speak of. There were only forces holding down the forces one by one, forming a chaotic region. I have to increase my strength as soon as possible, he thought to himself. As long as his strength increased by 1 level, he would be able to fight, or even kill a powerhouse at the 2nd level of the see-through void tier. Buzz! At this moment, a terrifying energy attacked the Dragon and Phoenix grocery store. Wuxia, who was sitting in the store, had a slight change in expression. Roar! The blood evil turtle, who was lying by the door, raised its head. A violent aura was revealed in its eyes. Its cumbersome turtle shell moved slightly, and an earthy yellow energy surrounded the entire store. Boom! The terrifying sound of an explosion was heard. Wang Xian could clearly feel that the entire store was trembling. If not for the Blood Evil Turtle's defense, the entire store would have been turned into ruins. Wang Xian moved and appeared at the entrance. He looked at the sky coldly. Damn you, come and face your death. In the sky, more than 20 people were floating in front of the shop. An old man was standing in the middle. The fat young man was standing at the side. His fat face was staring at him coldly. The old man from earlier was standing at the other side. Wang Xian looked at the old man in the middle. His eyes were filled with killing intent as he slowly swept his gaze across the chubby young man and the rest. I spared your dog lives just now. Don't even think about it this time. Shut up, you yellow-mouthed brat. How dare you attack the people of my 9 Stars Empire? Who gave you the guts? The old man in the middle didn't make a move again. He took a deep look at the shop and sized up Wang Xian. In the tomb of the demi-human, there were as many experts as the clouds, and as many as the rain. Even an expert of the see-through void couldn't be arrogant here. The strength of the 9-star dynasty wasn't weak, but it wasn't too strong either. Many dynasties and sects with deep foundations were stronger than them. After his attack was easily blocked, he became cautious. This shop might not be simple. Uncle Qin, kill this reckless brat, and let them know the consequences of provoking our 9 Stars Empire. Before Wang Xian could speak, the fat young man's voice filled with killing intent was heard. Yes, General Qin. Kill him and tear down his shop. We must not let him off. A few other young men beside him echoed. When the old man heard the voices of the family disciples beside him, he frowned slightly and stared coldly at Wang Xian. I'm opening a shop here, yet the trash from your 9 Stars Empire still wants to collect safety fees. What a joke. Wang Xian stood in front of the shop and raised his head slightly. Killing intent surged in his heart. What's going on? Is there a commotion again? The people from the 9-star dynasty, and the people from that shop seemed to be from the 9-star dynasty, who went to that young man to collect protection fees. In the end, they were beaten up. What kind of background does this kid have? How dare he go against the 9-star dynasty? If he wants to open a shop in the graveyard of demi-humans without the ability, he can only seek protection from the powerful ones. Otherwise, he would be easily robbed. This young man is obviously in the same situation. Around the streets, there were at least tens of thousands of people looking over. All of them were smiling as they watched the commotion. Such a situation would be discovered after staying in the cemetery of demi-humans for a long time. It was not strange at all. Looks like this kid is going to be done for. What an unlucky kid. Some of them looked at the insightful emptiness realm expert in the sky, and then looked at Wang Xian who was alone below. They shook their heads slightly. Chapter 1222, Dragon and Phoenix Grocery Store 4. A cold voice came out of his mouth, causing the faces of the fat young man and the rest to turn cold instantly. Kid, this is our organ restaurant, in the territory of our 9 Stars dynasty. If you don't pay the safety fee, you can forget about opening this store. In fact, you might even be robbed. The old man beside the fat young man stared at Wang Xian coldly and threatened him faintly. Why are you still talking nonsense with him? How dare he act so arrogantly in our shop? Tear down his entire shop. The fat young man stared at Wang Xian ferociously and shouted loudly. Haha, I agree with this. Since they don't give face to the organ restaurant, then tear it down this time. The thing's here. A young man beside him laughed out loud and squinted his eyes in agreement. A greedy look appeared in his eyes. This is the shop that I bought. Do I still need to pay a safety fee like you guys? I finally understand that you guys are a bunch of self-righteous bandits. Wang Xian stood up slowly. A faint killing intent surged from his body. The 9 Stars dynasty? Hee hee. Since you guys don't want to get lost, I can only send you guys away. As he spoke, 2 terrifying elemental energies condensed in his palms. You brought this upon yourself. When the old man saw the energy in Wang Xian's hands, a killing intent surged from his body. A large saber appeared in his hands. Kill him. The fat young man's face, which was filled with muscles, appeared a little ferocious. He growled at the old man beside him. HMPH, you're courting death. The energy in Wang Xian's hands didn't hesitate at all. The combined combat technique, Jin Lu, was sent straight at the old man. Slash. The old man's saber glow was amplified as he slashed directly at Jin Lu. Not good. However, when the saber in his hand landed on Jin Lu, the level 9 extraordinary saber in the old man's hand actually broke apart. This caused him to be filled with extreme fear. Retreat, little prince, retreat immediately. Without any hesitation, his body trembled as a circular energy armor floated around him. The first-tier profound void tier armor that he had spent half his life savings on exploded. He pulled the fat young man's body and directly fled outside. The other 5 young men and women were slightly stunned. Shock appeared on their faces, and they fled outside in fear. The old man was the shopkeeper of the organ restaurant. He had the strength of a half-step profound void tier expert. However, he knew that he was no match for the other party, with just one strike. One could imagine that the young man's strength was not something that they could deal with. Wang Xian saw that they had escaped from the shop. He frowned slightly and did not chase after them. He waved his arm, and the golden flow dissipated immediately. In the shop, he did not dare to release too much strength. Otherwise, the entire shop would not be able to withstand it. I hope that all of you know your limits. If you still dare to come, don't blame me for being impolite. A cold glint flashed across Wang Xian's eyes as he looked at the spirit purple Qilin and the blood evil turtle behind him. Ziling blood evil, lie on the left and right side of the door. If anyone dares to cause trouble, kill them immediately. Wang Xian ordered the 2 beasts that were lying in the innermost part of the door. Roar, roar. The 2 beasts let out a low roar and immediately came to the 2 sides of the door. As long as they entered the door, they would be able to see the 2 big fellows standing on both sides. If there were any troublemakers, they would have to go through the Ling Zilin and the vicious turtle first. This tomb of the humans and demons is really chaotic. Wang Xian sighed slightly. It was extremely chaotic in the battlefield of the tomb of the humans and demons. It was also extremely chaotic in the place where the humans gathered. There was no order to speak of. There were only forces holding down the forces one by one, forming a chaotic region. I have to increase my strength as soon as possible, he thought to himself. As long as his strength increased by 1 level, he would be able to fight, or even kill a powerhouse at the 2nd level of the see-through void tier. Buzz! At this moment, a terrifying energy attacked the Dragon and Phoenix grocery store. Wang Xian, who was sitting in the store, had a slight change in expression. Roar! The blood evil turtle, who was lying by the door, raised its head. A violent aura was revealed in its eyes. Its cumbersome turtle shell moved slightly, and an earthy yellow energy surrounded the entire store. Boom! The terrifying sound of an explosion was heard. Wang Xian could clearly feel that the entire store was trembling. If not for the blood evil turtle's defense, the entire store would have been turned into ruins. Wang Xian moved and appeared at the entrance. He looked at the sky coldly. Damn you, come and face your death. In the sky, more than 20 people were floating in front of the shop. An old man was standing in the middle. The fat young man was standing at the side. His fat face was staring at him coldly. The old man from earlier was standing at the other side. Wang Xian looked at the old man in the middle. His eyes were filled with killing intent as he slowly swept his gaze across the chubby young man and the rest. I spared your dog lives just now. Don't even think about it this time. Shut up, you yellow-mouthed brat. How dare you attack the people of my 9 stars empire? Who gave you the guts? The old man in the middle didn't make a move again. He took a deep look at the shop and sized up Wang Xian. In the tomb of the demi-human, there were as many experts as the clouds, and as many as the rain. Even an expert of the see-through void couldn't be arrogant here. The strength of the 9-star dynasty wasn't weak, but it wasn't too strong either. Many dynasties and sects with deep foundations were stronger than them. After his attack was easily blocked, he became cautious. This shop might not be simple. Uncle Qin, kill this reckless brat, and let them know the consequences of provoking our 9 stars empire. Before Wang Xian could speak, the fat young man's voice filled with killing intent was heard. Yes, General Qin. Kill him and tear down his shop. We must not let him off. A few other young men beside him echoed. When the old man heard the voices of the family disciples beside him, he frowned slightly and stared coldly at Wang Xian. I'm opening a shop here, yet the trash from your 9 stars empire still wants to collect safety fees. What a joke. Wang Xian stood in front of the shop and raised his head slightly. Killing intent surged in his heart. What's going on? Is there a commotion again? The people from the 9-star dynasty, and the people from that shop seemed to be from the 9-star dynasty, who went to that young man to collect protection fees. In the end, they were beaten up. What kind of background does this kid have? How dare he go against the 9-star dynasty? If he wants to open a shop in the graveyard of demi-humans without the ability, he can only seek protection from the powerful ones. Otherwise he would be easily robbed. This young man is obviously in the same situation. Around the streets, there were at least tens of thousands of people looking over. All of them were smiling as they watched the commotion. Such a situation would be discovered after staying in the cemetery of demi-humans for a long time. It was not strange at all. Looks like this kid is going to be done for. What an unlucky kid. Some of them looked at the insightful emptiness realm expert in the sky, and then looked at Wang Xian who was alone below. They shook their heads slightly. Chapter 1224. Dragon and Phoenix Grocery Store 6. This second prince is really overbearing. Who told the people of the 9-star dynasty to be so unscrupulous? They actually attacked a newly opened store. But unexpectedly, they kicked an iron plate. That fat young man's identity shouldn't be simple. However, as long as he isn't an important prince of the 9-star dynasty, he will die today. When the crowd heard Long Xiaoqian's words, they whispered among themselves and looked at him with interest. Your Highness the second prince, don't you have a choice? We are willing to. Shut up. You have 5 seconds to choose. Do you want to make a move, or let me do it myself? The 9-star dynasty's insightful emptiness realm expert's expression kept changing as he spoke. However, before he could finish speaking, he was directly interrupted. This caused him to clench his fists tightly, his eyes filled with helplessness. The other party's background was much stronger than theirs, and even his strength was stronger than theirs. He turned his head and stared at the fat youth with a stiff expression. At this moment, the fat youth's body was drenched in cold sweat, and his eyes were filled with endless fear. He had never thought that he would encounter such a thing in less than 2 days. He had offended the second prince of the Light Dragon dynasty, and with his current status, he would definitely become a sacrifice. His heart was filled with fear and despair. The 5 young men and women standing behind him were shivering, feeling extremely lucky. Fortunately, it was not him who was going to be killed. Haha, second brother, aren't you being too overbearing? No matter what, the other party is a 9-star dynasty. It's not good for you to make enemies for our Light Dragon dynasty. At this moment, a voice suddenly sounded, causing the surrounding people to be stunned once again. Even the people from the 9-star dynasty were stunned as they hurriedly looked to the side. On the left side of the street, more than 100 people were walking towards them. A young man was walking in front. He was thin and weak. He had long hair, red hair, and a pink face. He held a folding fan in his hand and looked like a scholar. Beside him stood a middle-aged man. The middle-aged man crossed his arms and scanned his surroundings with his sharp eyes. Behind him, Yin Xianfeng was staring at Wang Xian with hatred in his eyes. Behind him, the strength of more than 100 people was not weak either. This was especially so since there were more than 10 young men from the 6 Elements sect. This made the entire faction much stronger. However, compared to Long Xiaotian who possessed the Black Shadow Panther, it was still a little lacking. This is the 8th prince of the Radiant Dragon dynasty. It's the 8th prince. He's now the 8th prince of the Radiant Dragon Dynasty. In the entire Radiant Dragon Dynasty, the 1st prince, 2nd prince, 8th prince, 16th prince, and 33rd prince are all strong contenders for the throne. Now that the 2nd prince is faintly surpassing them, some of the princes might be getting anxious. The people who were watching the show whispered when they saw the 8th prince leading his subordinates. 8th brother, why do you have the time to come here if you don't develop properly? Long Xiaoyan's eyes revealed a trace of coldness when he saw his younger brother arrive, and he said coldly, as rivals for the throne, the relationship between the princes was not good. Even if they were brothers, they were not mothers. Otherwise, he would not be only 5 years younger than the 33rd prince. I came out to take a walk and saw you here, 2nd brother. As a brother, I naturally want to take a look. The 8th prince looked at Long Xiaotian with a face full of spring breeze, and said with a smile. After he finished speaking, he looked at the people of the 9-star dynasty and said indifferently, Everyone, how did you offend my 2nd brother, and make him so angry? Your Highness the 8th prince. The 9-star dynasty's void interpretation expert was slightly stunned when he heard the 8th prince's words. He hurriedly cupped his hands, and a glimmer of light flashed in his eyes. A hint of life appeared on the face of the fat young man standing at the side. This friend of the 2nd prince had some friction with us, but we didn't know that he was the 2nd prince's friend, so we somewhat offended him. The 9-star dynasty's insightful emptiness realm expert immediately said, just because of a small matter? The 8th prince pretended to be surprised and said, Yes, because of this matter. We wanted to use other ways to save it, but the 2nd prince didn't agree. The insightful emptiness realm expert immediately replied, 2nd brother, this is your fault. The friends of the 9-star dynasty offended you just because they didn't know the other party was your friend. But you killed them directly. Isn't that a bit too much? As the princes of the Radiant Dragon Dynasty, we can't make enemies for the kingdom everywhere. The 8th prince looked at Long Xiaotian, and glanced at Wang Xian who was beside him. He said with a smile, The words of the 8th prince stunned the people of the 9 Stars dynasty. Following that, a glint flashed in their eyes. When the people around saw this scene, they narrowed their eyes slightly. The princes of the Light Dragon dynasty are starting a game. Although the 2nd prince is stronger, the 8th prince isn't too far behind. A game between the 2 princes. There will be a good show today. When the crowd saw this scene, they understood. The game between the 2 princes had begun. 8th brother, do I need your guidance on what I want to do? Long Xiaotian stared at him coldly, and said with slight disdain. Naturally, I don't have the right to guide 2nd brother on what he wants to do. But the people of the 9-star dynasty are my friends. I can't just watch my friends get killed, right? The 8th prince stared at Long Xiaotian in a tit-for-tat manner. Your Highness, 8th prince, thank you, Your Highness. In the future, if the 8th prince has any orders, I, Zhouquan Liang, will definitely not refuse. When the fat young man standing at the side heard the 8th prince's words, his eyes revealed an excited expression. He hurriedly opened his mouth to express his attitude, filled with respect. Thank you, 8th prince, for helping us to stand up for ourselves. That insightful void martial expert also spoke to the 8th prince with gratitude, his eyes flickering. The battle between the 2 princes was actually a good thing for them. 8th brother, it seems like you're determined to go against me today. Long Xiaotian stared at the 8th prince, his eyes flickering as he asked. You help your friend, I help my friend. I'm not going against 2nd brother. The 8th prince shook his head, but soon after, his expression also darkened. But if you want to go against my friend, I absolutely won't allow it. When he finished speaking, the atmosphere around them froze, and a murderous aura formed between them. Hee, you and I both know very well that it's not a waste of time to talk so much nonsense. In the future, don't be so weird in front of me. Just say what you want to say. Otherwise, I will treat you as just a weird trash. Long Xiaoyan's eyes were filled with disdain when he heard his words. He did not hide his disdain at all. His words caused the 8th prince, who had been smiling, to change his expression drastically. Chapter 1225, Dragon and Phoenix Grocery Store 7. Damn, the second prince is still so domineering. Anyone with a discerning eye can tell that the eighth prince is not a friend of the nine-star dynasty at all. In the end, after saying so much, he was directly dumped by the second prince. In the beginning, the eighth prince did what he wanted to do casually, but I didn't expect the second prince to say it so directly. Eccentric? The description is really appropriate. When the surrounding people heard Long Xiaoyan's cold words and saw the eighth prince's changed expression, they all smiled. Even the subordinates behind the eighth prince felt a little uncomfortable. In the matter of martial artists, the strong should be the enemy. There was no need to be so eccentric. Humph. When the eighth prince heard Long Xiaoyan's words, his expression also turned cold when he heard the surrounding people's voices. So I didn't want to shed all pretense of cordiality with second brother. But since you want to say it directly, just say it. That kid behind you has offended a few of my friends. As he spoke, he looked at Yin Xianfeng and the rest of the Six Element sect behind him. Your Highness, I'm sure you are aware of the enmity between your friend and me. Hee. Yin Xianfeng took a step forward and glared at Wang Xian with hatred. He said word by word, I want him dead. I want him to die. His killing intent was undisguised. He dares to hurt our senior brother Yin. He must pay a heavy price. Today he must die no matter what. Beside Yin Xianfeng, a few of his junior brothers behind him said with killing intent. Hee, eighth brother, can't you just say what's on your mind? Why are you beating around the bush for so long? Long Xiaotian stared at him coldly. Let my brother die. It's not that I look down on you, but you don't have the strength to do so. Hee, I admit that second brother is stronger than me, but it's still easy to kill him. The eighth prince narrowed his eyes and looked at the people of the nine-star dynasty. You guys go and kill that kid. Leave my second brother to me. The eighth prince's words caused the eyes of the people from the nine-star empire to flicker. They looked at the second prince and fell into deep thought. Don't worry, he won't dare to take revenge on all of you. If he does, come and find me. I, Long Xiaoyan, will keep my word. When the eighth prince saw their hesitant expressions, he spoke again. Yes, it's the eighth prince. We agree. Leave him to us. Leave that damned fellow to us. Without waiting for the insightful emptiness realm expert to agree, the fat young man, Zhouchuan Liang, quickly replied loudly. His face was full of muscles and was filled with ferocious excitement. All right, we believe in the eighth prince. When the insightful emptiness realm expert saw that the young prince had agreed, he nodded his head slowly with a cold expression in his eyes. His eyes were filled with killing intent as he stared at Wang Xian. Eighth brother, it seems like you want to fight with me now. Long Xiaotian frowned slightly and said to him with a solemn face. Second brother, with your current strength, you can't destroy my men. As long as I can restrain your men, that kid will naturally be killed. I promised brother Yin Xianfeng that I would help him kill that kid. I will definitely do it. The eighth prince raised his head slightly and revealed a confident expression. Haha, thank you, eighth prince. In the future I, Yin Xianfeng, will fight for the eighth prince to the death. I wish you the throne. Beside him, Yin Xianfeng revealed an excited expression and quickly expressed his loyalty. Second prince, no matter what, that kid must die. No one can save him. Following that, he looked at Long Xiaotian and said with a smile on his face. After that, he turned his head abruptly and stared at Wang Xian. A ferocious smile appeared on his face. No one can protect the people that our eighth prince wants to kill. The throne belongs to our eighth prince. Haha, that's right. A brat. We can kill him if we want to. No one can stop us. The throne belongs to the eighth prince. Behind the eighth prince, his subordinates raised the weapons in their hands and shouted confidently. Haha, with all of you brothers, I also believe that the throne belongs to me. The eighth prince laughed loudly and said confidently. Do it. Clang, clang, clang. When he finished speaking, the subordinates behind him pulled out the weapons in their hands. The eighth prince looked at the people from the Nine Stars dynasty. The Nine Stars Dynasty's insightful emptiness realm experts naturally knew what they should do now. At this point they had no way out. If they didn't make a move, they would definitely die. They didn't hesitate at all, and stared at Wang Xian with murderous intent. Second brother, if you dare to help your friend, I will help my friend too. Think about it, even though my subordinates aren't as strong as you. However, our brothers from the Nine-Star Empire are very strong. Hee. The 8th prince shrugged his shoulders and looked at Long Xiaotian with a smile. Second prince, our Nine-Star Empire doesn't want to be your enemy. I hope you won't make things difficult for us. The insightful void martial artist from the Nine-Star Empire said faintly. Long Xiaotian frowned when he saw this scene. The more than 200 subordinates behind him also looked at him. All right, leave it to me. Wang Xian patted Long Xiaotian's shoulder and said calmly. How is it? Brother Wang Xian, you don't have to worry. I can protect you. Long Xiaotian frowned slightly and asked. Are you still worried about me? Wang Xian revealed a smile on his face. Long Xiaotian smiled when he saw Wang Xian's smile. He immediately raised one of his arms and looked in the direction of the 8th prince. Watch them closely. If any of them dares to move, kill them immediately. Long Xiaotian shouted loudly. Yes. The subordinates behind him immediately shouted loudly. The 8th prince felt the imposing manner of the other party. Instead, a smile appeared on his face. Don't worry, second brother. As long as you don't make a move, I will definitely not make a move. Hee. I thought that second brother would fight with me for the sake of his friend. As he spoke, he didn't forget to hit Long Xiaotian's prestige. Long Xiaotian's nonchalant lips curled up slightly. He looked at Wang Xian beside him, and a look of confidence flashed across his eyes. Kill that fellow for me. Tear him into pieces. When Yin Xianfeng saw that the second prince did not make a move, he revealed an excited expression. As long as the second prince did not make a move, with the strength of the people from the Nine Stars dynasty, the Jedi could easily kill Wang Xian. Although he could not kill him with his own hands, he would die because he provoked him. As long as he saw his death, Yin Xianfeng would get his revenge. He was delighted. The people from the Nine Stars dynasty narrowed their eyes slightly and gripped their weapons tightly. They stared at Wang Xian and were ready to attack. Chapter 1226, Dragon and Phoenix Grocery Store 8. The game is over. It seems that the 8th prince has the upper hand this time. The 8th prince has teamed up with the people of the Nine-Star dynasty to eliminate one of the battle teams of the second prince. I didn't expect that the 8th prince would have the upper hand this time. That young man is going to be finished. He will be the sacrifice between the two princes. Why does it look like the second prince isn't worried about that young man? Could it be that the young man has a way to deal with him? A way? Could it be that he can deal with the experts of the Nine-Star dynasty? There's an existence at the first level of the profound void tier. The surrounding people saw the final situation and discussed in low voices. In the Light Dragon dynasty's prince assessment, the princes could fight each other, but there was a very strict rule that only subordinates could fight. Brothers and sisters were absolutely not allowed to kill each other. This was a rule that had been passed down from the Light Dragon dynasty. No matter how many of the prince's subordinates died, the dynasty would not care about it. However, there must not be any casualties between the princes. Once a prince offended them, the punishment would be more severe than expected. The selection of the crown prince was absolutely fair and impartial. With all the forces of the Light Dragon dynasty watching over them, there would definitely not be any injustice. However, the competition between the princes was also very intense. For example, if they were to fight now, apart from the two princes, no one could guarantee that they would be able to survive. They would usually not fight until the end. The 8th prince also saw this point. Therefore, even though he was not as strong as the second prince, he still dared to fight against him. Don't worry, we will definitely not let him off. Do it, everyone, do it. The chubby young man Zhichuan Liang looked at Yin Xianfeng. He responded with a ferocious expression and looked at Wang Xian sinisterly. You want to kill me? You wanted to kill me just now. In a while, I will tear you into pieces and make you wish you were dead. Haha. A twisted smile appeared on his face as he roared loudly. Just now he had experienced a life-and-death situation. If not for the sudden appearance of the 8th prince, he might have already died. Everything was because of this fellow. It was all because of him that he almost caused his own death. Now it was time for him to take revenge. He wanted to make his life worse than death. Good. Yin Xianfeng looked at Jiuquan Liang with a smile on his face. Then he fixed his gaze on Wang Xian. The 8th prince looked at this scene with a smile. Just like the discussions of the people around him, he had won this game. With the help of the power of the 9 Stars dynasty, he could kill one of his second brother's powerful subordinates. As for the young man who could defeat Yin Xianfeng, he didn't care about him at all. His only opponents were the other princes. As for their subordinates, he didn't care about them at all. He could kill a person with no background as he pleased. Attack! The 9 Stars dynasty's insightful void martial artist stared at Wang Xian and gave the order to attack in a deep voice. In the surroundings, the weapons of the 9 Stars dynasty's experts instantly gathered together to attack. Hehe, do you really think that I'm so easy to bully? Wang Xian saw that everyone around him had a look of death on their faces, and a hint of mockery appeared in his eyes. Die! Just as he finished his sentence, the experts from the 9 Stars dynasty around him attacked Wang Xian directly. Wang Xian stood there, and the mockery in his eyes became even more intense. Roar! Just as the attacks were about to land on Wang Xian, a low roar was heard. An earthy yellow energy covered Wang Xian completely. The attacks, including those from a half-step void interpretation stage powerhouse, did not even cause a ripple when they landed on him. Everyone was slightly stunned and revealed a look of astonishment on their faces. The people from the 9 Stars dynasty, Yin Xianfeng, and the 8th prince were also slightly surprised. They quickly looked towards the Dragon and Phoenix grocery store. Roar! Roar! At this moment another low roar was heard. The voice was extremely dull and rang in everyone's ears. Everyone was slightly shocked. Even the 9 Star dynasty's insightful emptiness realm expert's pupils shrunk slightly. A ferocious beast walked out from the store. It was 3 meters tall, and its body was flashing with purple lightning. It had 2 huge fangs, and looked extremely ferocious. Its eyes were blood red. It swept its cold gaze across everyone around, and slowly walked towards Wang Xian. However, this was not the end. When the ferocious lightning beast walked out, a turtle-like creature that was 3 meters in size crawled out. Its entire body was blood red, and was filled with a strong murderous aura. Everyone was familiar with this ferocious beast, the blood evil turtle. Similarly, it walked straight towards Wang Xian. The 2 ferocious beasts were very fast. In the blink of an eye, they arrived beside Wang Xian, one on the left and one on the right. They raised their heads slowly and stared at the group of people who were attacking Wang Xian. Hiss! At this moment Long Xiaotian, who was beside Wang Xian, inhaled a breath of cold air. Bai Qingshan, the elder, and the group of people riding the black shadow leopard beside Long Xiaotian widened their eyes slightly. They stared at the 2 ferocious beasts in disbelief. Ling Zilin. They all knew that it was a ferocious beast at the first level of the see-through realm. As for the blood evil tortoise, this was the first time they had seen it. The level of this blood evil tortoise was very familiar to those who had stayed in the human demon graveyard for a long time. This was because the blood evil tortoise had appeared in the sea of the human demon graveyard. A blood evil tortoise at the first level of the see-through realm. Another blood evil tortoise at the first level of the see-through realm. Including Ling Zilin, there were a total of 2 subordinates at the first level of the see-through realm. This was simply too crazy. Long Xiaoyan's eyes flickered as he looked at Wang Xian. He exchanged a glance with Bai Qingshan and the elder beside him. Both of them could see the shock in each other's eyes. A month ago, Wang Xian only had 1 ferocious beast of the first level of the see-through realm. However, a month later, he obtained another ferocious beast of the first level of the see-through realm. Moreover, this blood-evil turtle was obviously obtained from the sea of the demi-human graveyard. In just a short month, he had an additional ferocious beast pet of the first level of the see-through realm under his command. This made Long Xiaotian feel ashamed. He was the prince of the Radiant Dragon Dynasty. The strength of his subordinates was not even as strong as Wang Xian's two pets. This thigh is really thick and strong. A hint of excitement flashed across Long Xiaotian's eyes as a smile appeared on his face. What is that? At this moment, everyone's attention was focused on the two ferocious beasts beside Wang Xian. The earthy yellow defense earlier was clearly released by the blood-evil turtle. They were almost certain of the blood-evil turtle's strength. The first level of the void interpretation stage. As for the other one, although he didn't exude his aura, he was able to walk out together with the blood-evil turtle. Presumably, everyone's faces turned solemn gradually. The pupils of the see-through realm expert from the 9 Stars Empire shrunk slightly. Clearly, he had thought of this as well. Do you really think that I am someone that you can kill as you please? Wang Xian looked at them with a mocking expression. Kill them. Chapter 1227, Dragon and Phoenix Grocery Store 9. Kill them. When Wang Xian's voice rang out, the two ferocious beasts beside him immediately moved. At this moment, a terrifying aura was emitted from the bodies of the two ferocious beasts. That was the terrifying aura of an insightful emptiness realm expert. Exploding purple lightning. The terrifying bloody aura. Roar, roar. Roar, roar. Ling Zilin and the blood-evil turtle roared in a deep voice, and their figures instantly disappeared. Their icy cold eyes stared intently at the profound void tier expert from the 9-star dynasty. Boom boom! The figures of the two beasts disappeared, and they charged over with terrifying pressure. The instant they charged towards the profound void tier expert, the purple lightning from Ling Zilin's purple lightning struck everyone from the 9-star dynasty. Crackle! The purple lightning contained a terrifying killing intent. In an instant, the people surrounding them, including the half-step void interpretation expert, were charred black. They didn't even have the time to resist. They didn't even let out a scream, and were instantly killed. This was the terror of the void interpretation beasts. What? The moment the two beasts attacked, the 9-star dynasty's void interpretation expert revealed a terrifying expression. His expression changed, and his forehead was covered in cold sweat. Two insightful void tier 1 beasts. He actually had two insightful void tier 1 beasts. This. Standing behind the insightful void tier expert, Zhou Chuanliang's body instantly became incomparably cold, as if he had entered an ice cellar. He widened his eyes, staring at the two beasts in front of him in disbelief. No, how could this be, how could? He shook his head, his body trembling. 2 rank 1 void interpretation beasts. 2 rank 1 void interpretation beasts. The other 5 young men and women were also filled with fear. The 9-star dynasty void interpretation expert, who was locked onto by the 2 void interpretation beasts, gritted his teeth, and a golden blade appeared in his hand and slashed at them. Boom! A terrifying sound of collision sounded. However, the attacks of the 9-star dynasty void interpretation expert didn't stop the attacks of the two beasts. Ling Zilin's strength was already at the peak of the first level of the insightful void stage. As for the other blood-evil turtle, it had lived in the blood spirit cave for 2,000 to 3,000 years. When Wang Xian encountered it, it was extremely weak. However, after a few days of recovery, it had already returned to its peak. Just by relying on the accumulation of time, the blood-evil turtle was already at the peak of its bloodline. 2 ferocious beasts at the peak of the first level of the insightful void stage could definitely suppress an ordinary expert at the first level of the insightful void stage. Oh no, escape. Otherwise I'll die here. The void interpretation stage expert from the 9-star dynasty was filled with fear as his eyes flashed. He wanted to think of a way to escape. Roar! However, at this moment earthen yellow walls that were 1,000 meters wide suddenly appeared in all directions. These earthen yellow walls completely sealed the surroundings. Fuck, quickly retreat. It's the Blood Evil Turtle's avatar. The earth is sealed, and it used its avatar the moment it appeared. It wants to kill the 9-star dynasty's Void Interpretation Realm experts. 2 level 1 Void Interpretation Realm beasts. My god, that youth actually has 2 level 1 Void Interpretation Realm pets. This is too terrifying. Fuck, the reversal is too fast. That youth already has extremely terrifying strength. Just now, this group of people actually decided this person's life and death. What a joke. This 9-star dynasty didn't just kick an iron plate, it kicked an iron plate. It might as well directly kill that fatty young man and get it over with. Now it's going to be even worse. When the surrounding crowd saw the earthen yellow wall that was suspended in a radius of 2 kilometers, a shocked expression appeared on their faces. Some people hurriedly fled into the distance, while others flew into the sky to watch the battle inside. Not good. The 9-star dynasty's insightful emptiness realm expert's expression was extremely gloomy, and a trace of panic appeared in his eyes. How could it be? Yin Xianfeng, who was at the 8th prince's and the others' position, saw this scene. His eyes widened, and his expression was filled with disbelief. He clenched his teeth tightly, and his fists were clenched tightly. How could that fellow, who was certain to die, have 2 first-level insightful emptiness realm beasts as pets? He could not believe it. He could not believe it at all. The 8th prince, who was standing at the front, was also in a daze. He stared at the 2 ferocious beasts in a daze. Ha 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 ha. 8th brother. Do you think that brother Wang Xian is my subordinate? Do you think that you have won this game? At this moment, Long Xiaotian could not help but burst into laughter when he saw the 8th prince and the expressions of the people behind him. When the 8th prince heard his laughter, he turned his head around with a gloomy face. 8th brother, brother Wang Xian is not my subordinate. I don't have the qualifications to take in such a subordinate. His strength is not inferior to yours or mine. Long Xiaotian stared at him and revealed a smile on his face. With brother Wang Xian's strength, he doesn't need my help at all. You are simply courting death by using him to gamble with me. When the 8th prince heard Long Xiaotian's words, his expression changed constantly. Damn it, damn it, damn it. From behind, Yin Xianfeng's continuous low growls made him extremely frustrated. He clenched his fists tightly and watched the battle in the sky with a gloomy face. Crackle, crackle. The terrifying lightning struck toward the 9-star empire's insightful void martial artist. In the sky, an area of 2 kilometers was completely covered by the purple lightning. In the midst of the lightning, there were also terrifying earth spikes and earth mountains that attacked him from time to time. He was trapped in the virtual image land and could not escape at all. Now that he was facing the attacks of 2 top-grade insightful emptiness realm level 1 ferocious beasts, he was completely suppressed. In fact, he did not even have the strength to resist. He could only resist and resist. 8th prince, he won't be able to hold on for long. He will die. The middle-aged man standing next to the 8th prince frowned and said to Wang Xian, Phew, I didn't expect that. I didn't expect that he would befriend such a young man. The 8th prince felt a lump in his chest. The 2nd prince was stronger than him to begin with. Now that he had befriended such a young man, even though he wasn't his subordinate, he could still be of great help. Under such circumstances, the 2nd prince's strength would be even stronger. Ah! Right at this moment, the sound of that insightful void martial artist screaming in pain came from the sky. His chest had been struck by the purple lightning, and it had turned completely black. His hair had spread out, and half of it had been struck by the lightning. His entire person looked incomparably miserable. Within a short period of time, he had already suffered heavy injuries. I'll fight it out with you. His eyes were filled with a trace of despair as he struggled. The long saber in his hand shook, and a 10-meter-long golden saber appeared around him. Dharma idol, golden saber Huanyu, roar roar. When Ling Zilin saw his Dharma idol, his front hooves slightly raised as he lightly stepped in the air, emitting a terrifying sound. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.